Are we live?
Yeah, I'm gonna refresh my thing again.
I think we're live.
It's still. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Look at that. I see Richard on there right now. I see Frank.
I don't
see
it.
anything.
You have to refresh the page.
Oh, look at that.
Yes, we are. Look at that.
Oh, hello world.
It's just a little. It's just a little delayed. So
it's a lot delayed.
All right. Now I'm gonna turn my computer towards it, and we can.
You have to refresh the page.
Oh my, it's way delayed.
Yeah, we definitely can't watch both at the same time. Hey world, if you're watching us, we're just working out the technical kinks here. We will be starting in a half an hour for reals. Meanwhile, watch us fumble in the dark here while we figure out Zoom and YouTube.
There's 5 watching now. So there is somebody watching us.
Ooh,
Hey everybody.
creepy.
Enjoy the behind the scenes tour of the Center for Astronomical Society.
Just a couple of guys.
Len's smart. He turned his thing off completely.
Yeah, so I think it'll be helpful to have someone who's not presenting, monitoring the YouTube comments. Actually, I can see the comments. It's just really confusing because it's so delayed.
Yeah, you could turn off the audio, right? You can turn off the speakers. And
And then he wouldn't be able to hear on the Zoom. Or can you?
But then again, if he's handling the no. If he just turns off the audio on the YouTube page and then he's just focusing on the Zoom, he can just handle the comments as they come through.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's working. There's still a video feed
I can
on
do
the
the
page
same
that has
too.
the comments.
Oh, there's
can have
Eric.
What's that?
There's Eric. Eric is the
yes.
one watching us.
Ooh,
Stalker.
I always fear that somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy.
Do.
Oh my gosh, all these 80s music references. It's just
Eric, you need to get on the Zoom. Let me send him a text.
I mean, if he's watching on YouTube, he'll just know that he needs to get on Zoom.
All right.
Were you able to turn it off, or is it still going?
I think we're good. Let me just make sure I can do the PowerPoint thing.
All right, gentlemen. Well, I'm glad that we got this all working now. Thank goodness, as said, we came on early and we got this all worked out before.
Indeed.
All right, so Frank, you want to go ahead and make me, Richard, co-host, just in case we didn't have any.
Oh, yeah.
Frank, you did a presentation too.
I did. I ruined everything, though. What have I done?
That's okay. I've got about 20 slides.
20? You're kidding me?
I'm going to
4.
talk on the cuff, guys. I'm not trying to, I'm all about just going with the flow here. I was just on here just to answer people's questions. So.
Oh, and actually, you talk more about imaging, so that's good. I don't talk about imaging hardly at all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like doing show and tell of like all the telescopes I bought in like the journey.
Oh, perfect.
Which is good because I have exactly the same telescopes as Derek, so it could get redundant. Why can't I get back to the main Zoom window now? Oh, okay, stop share. There we go. All right.
Hey, Eric.
All right, let me host
Ken
a file.
Graun.
Yeah, that's me. Can you anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm supposed to deliver the talk on Messier.
Oh, yeah, guest speaker. Hey.
Yeah.
Let me see my best side here.
Hey, I like the scope. I like that wood, the little wood handle there, the rim. Looks good. No. In a couple minutes.
In a couple of minutes.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on here.
Talk away, Frank. Talk away.
I'll
back you up.
Okay, what I need to do, I didn't expect to.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, I need to, I don't use Zoom. I do teach at a college, and I use something else, but I need to figure out how to get my PowerPoint to display.
Okay.
Here we go.
In your Zoom window, down at the bottom, there should be a green button that says share screen.
Yes.
Only co-hosts are allowed to share screens. So,
Okay.
you're the
I will
host.
co-hostify you. Hang
You'll
on.
have to co-host him.
Well, we're going to promote you, Ken.
There you go.
Oh, okay, good. I love being promoted. Pay raise and everything, huh?
And Frank, once we're done with the YouTube sequence of the, are we doing it? Is it staying live?
Who's talking in the background?
I don't know. Not me.
You might have YouTube and Zoom playing at the same time, Eric.
Oh, hang on a second. Let me get the.
Yeah, Ken, it's great you're here. We can do a dry run and make sure everything works.
That's all that I need. And you can hear me okay, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
fine.
there we go.
Okay, I'm on
You are-
iMac.
Yeah, you are on in about an hour and a half. Are
Okay,
you on
yeah.
the?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. Let's see. One participant can share.
Yeah, let's try the screen share and make sure that works so that we're not
Okay.
doing that in front of everybody.
Okay, so this is doing it a little bit differently than my class stuff.
Now at 6 o'clock, we're going to do a how to pick a telescope thing for an hour. And if you want to join us,
I
and
can't.
watch. Okay.
I'm in. There's a lot happening with my family right now. My mom's going under hospice today, right now. So
Oh,
yeah,
sorry
there's
to
a
hear
lot-
that.
yeah. Thanks, but there's a lot of stuff that's okay. And
Oh,
you can-
look. Yes, we see your slides now.
Okay. Now here's one thing I don't know. Are you seeing this? You're seeing the slide and the all of what's it called?
Yes.
Oh, PowerPoint.
We see PowerPoint.
Okay, so I need to go up here, play from the start. Let me just do play from the start here. Okay, now
There we go.
you just see the slide, right?
Correct.
Okay, let me make sure that this is working. Okay. And you can hear me and you can see the slide. So we should pretty much be okay. Now, and I can say, I can go up here and stop the share. Okay. And I guess with a picture of me, how if anyone really wants to see my face.
Oh, it's always good to see a person.
Yeah, let me
Makes you more human.
it says rename. So if I click on myself, okay, wait, down here, chat, polling, record, start video. Now the start video, is that the recording of me on the left-hand side?
The
That
yes.
should activate your webcam, I think.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Let me just
Yeah, the record button is a separate button.
yeah, gotcha.
Hey, look at that.
Okay, there I am.
I see you.
That
Good.
sounds good. I'll be relatively presentable, relatively. I'll make sure I comb my hair and I'll be
Dude,
ready.
it's the Astronomy Club.
How many people roughly do you think
It's
will be?
usually it's about 35, 40 or so.
Oh, it's relatively small. That's sort of nice to know. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, good. It's a relatively basic talk. And when I say basic, I'm going to talk more about the history of Messier. And, and by the end, my goal is by the end for them to know really what the motivation was for his catalog. Okay. And I think everyone will know that by the end, because I'm going to actually talk about it at the beginning. So
Yeah, I've always wanted to ask somebody knowledgeable. Listen, nobody's going to mistake this for a comet. Come on, there's more.
That's correct. No, there is more to it. That's exactly it.
Yeah. There's more to this story.
I do not know how that grew, and everyone repeats it. And there's a little bit of truth to it, but that's not what the catalog was all about. And he says it, and I'll show you where.
Well, great. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so an hour and a half. So it's 3:30 my time. 4 o'clock. So 7 o'clock I'll be on. 7 o'clock your time.
Are you Eastern?
I'm 3 hours different, so I'm Western.
Oh, you're West Coast. Yes, 7 hour time. We start the meeting, and I'll talk for about 5 minutes, and then Trisha will introduce you, or if she's not around, I'll introduce you, and so it'll be all yours for a while.
Okay, good. So I'll probably begin about maybe, let's say, your time, 7:15 or so.
Oh, sooner than that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't talk for a whole a long time with a bunch of boring stuff. Jumping right into it is we save the boring stuff for last, and that way if people wander off, it's not that big a deal. So I'm just going to basically welcome people and talk briefly about our next month's elections.
Okay.
It shouldn't take 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
One thing problem that I have at school sometimes when I'm teaching my courses is about on the average about 20 join me. But I know when I do that, and it's not Zoom, it's something like Zoom. I don't have them basically show me their pictures because it takes up too much bandwidth. Do you pretty much do the same thing here?
Yeah, we're not. When we do our program, we're going to show pictures from the month, but we're not going to have people showing you their Messier objects or anything.
Yeah, their face. Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, I will leave.
Yeah, that could drag really on.
Yeah, okay. Oh yeah. And also the bandwidth too. I don't know how quickly these things will glitch, so. So okay, I'm gonna leave. This is working. Thanks a lot. I'll see you guys.
All right, thanks then. I'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
All right. So Frank went to Inhale dinner. Trisha's here. Hi, Trisha. Good. You're going to introduce our guest speaker, just so you know. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
I heard.
Okay. I still like your profile picture. It's the best.
Me too. Thanks for.
Okay, so shall we take a break for 20 minutes or so? Sound good? Yeah, we're going to take a break for about 20 minutes or so.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Come back in 15, something like that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I'm just going to leave mine up and running because it's all up and running.
Yeah, just make sure it's muted when you leave.
Yeah.
Wait, you don't want to eavesdrop on
Derek,
me?
what'd you say? I can see your lips move, but I can't hear you. No, I'm kidding.
Well,
I'm kidding.
No, I just just in case if you want to let out a really loud fart,
Right.
You can people want to hear it.
Right. Fabulous. I can't get my background photos on here. I can do over at a work meeting. I can get my backgrounds on.
Yeah. So like under the video thing, choose virtual background. Not working for you?
No, that doesn't list here.
Okay.
Hang on a second. Oh, there we go. Okay. You're a genius. There we go. Let's see.
I am. My mother had me tested.
All right. I'll come up with something during the break. Here we are.
Okay.
Very good.
I'll see you guys.
All righty.
Hey.
Good evening, Phil. Just
Hey, Frank.
full disclosure, we are currently broadcasting live on YouTube, so the world is watching. Actually, in all
world.
honesty, it's more like 2 people right now, but hello,
Is this
world.
where I'm supposed to tune in for the how to choose a telescope?
Yes,
Video?
you're in the right place.
I'll
We'll be
just
starting in
mute
about 8
myself
minutes.
and enjoy.
All right.
I'm back. Did I miss anything?
No. Not yet. Who else needs co-host privileges? Anyone else have slides?
I mentioned to Lynn that if he had some pictures that he could show of some of his setups, I figured my slides will suffice for that. I'm really glad actually you're going to talk about imaging because I really only focused on visual. Common misconceptions, eyepieces are responsible for magnification and that sort of thing. Just sort of some foundational groundwork so that people know what we're talking about. If we use the word refractor, and let's face it, a lot of people don't know what a refractor is or a reflector. So, and then I can pull up individual slides if I need to reinforce something, as part of a conversation later.
Awesome. Yeah, you should definitely go first because those fundamentals will be key.
And I think I'll pull up the YouTube just so I can see how many people we have watching.
Well, I've got the fancy dashboard here, 4 at the moment.
Okay, well, that's us. I'm sure we'll have a number of CFAS members who will want to watch, and they'll probably join the Zoom, as I presume Phil is one of our members. Just came early to say hello and hang out, and that's perfectly fine.
Yep, he checked in earlier.
Yep.
I suppose the proper social media marketing protocol would be to send out some sort of a blast to the world saying, hey, we're starting, but I don't even know where we sent this out to.
Yeah. I sent out the link, the YouTube link on Twitter and Facebook earlier today, but I don't know what the wisdom is. Should you promote this a week coming up to the event and promote it all the time, or does it really make any difference where, basically people just show up because they saw it today?
It's a mix of the two. Sometimes when you blast stuff too far in advance, people forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing to do is to send reminders every couple of days saying we're going live at this time. But it actually isn't unwise to send a quick Facebook post at 6 o'clock saying we're going live on YouTube. So I can do that while you all.
Okay. That's a good idea. We were just talking about that, whether we should send something out or not. Sharife's here too. Hi, Sharife. Now, Eric, if you're going to show off your telescopes, you have to turn off your virtual background.
Yeah, you're not kidding. See, it's hidden in the,
Yeah, it's hidden in Saturn's rings.
That's right. Totally different division.
You are a superstar.
Pasta, pasta.
You get this big, halo around your head.
I know. I feel so monkish.
It's Saint Eric.
Wait. There we go. Just like
You
that.
lined it up
There we
perfectly. That's awesome.
Princess Leia's uncle. I'm gonna find a different background. Let's do the.
Hey, so Frank, are we doing the YouTube recording the whole meeting or just for the first hour?
I was gonna record from Zoom and the whole thing and just break it up in editing, I guess.
Okay, so but for the YouTube live stream, is that the whole live meeting?
I think the
Yes.
intent was to stream the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to invite visitors to watch the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. All right.
Now the live stream recording will live in posterity by default unless we disable that, so people can go back and watch it later.
Okay. Is everything turned off?
T-minus 3 minutes. Pressurizing up a stage or whatever.
Frank, do you have a ZWO filter wheel?
I do not have an attic filter wheel.
All right.
Actually, Richard, I was going to ask, do you have any leads on when some of the manufacturer, the like OPT and those guys will start having cameras in stock? Because I've been waiting 2 months for the camera to finally show up on their.
No, everybody is out of everything.
Hmm.
Yeah, everybody's out of everything.
Yeah, my concern is that my funding is only allowed for like 6 months or something. So hopefully they get them in by then, because
Well, you can still order it if it's out of stock, right?
no, we're not allowed to order in. There's a lot of stipulations on purchasing. One of them is that they have to be in stock because there has to be a guarantee, or there. I don't know if there's a way we can do like a guarantee. Like we will ship this once it arrives. So I'll find out tomorrow.
I have a replacement 6-inch refractor for the one that was stolen. It's on a boat out in the middle of the Pacific, and it'll be at least another 2 weeks before it even gets here, if not more than that. So,
all right, I'm gonna go ahead and begin the post. I'm waiting for 6 o'clock to.
Yeah, go ahead.
you go.
Go ahead. We have 6 watching us on YouTube.
All right, it
1
went
minute.
hot.
Vehicles on internal power.
I can't get any more power, Captain.
You know, your Facebook post about nerds and what we're interested in, I really wanted to sit down all day long and write a 10-page essay about that. And
Yeah, the
decided
irony is
I should probably work instead, but yeah.
yeah. I was actually, speaking of nerds, I was watching a Star Trek panel later that day, of course, because that's what nerds do. And they were actually talking about the same topic. You know, like a lot of people kind of like get engrossed in pop culture, but you need to translate that to action too. It's not enough to like, you know, just go off into your fantasy world. You have to like try to make the world your fantasy, right? So,
Right.
but we digress.
We
It's 6 o'clock.
digress. Well, we have 8 people watching on YouTube,
Welcome.
and we have, and unfortunately, some of that's us. And we have 8 people. We have 8 participants here. Who all do we have? Some members here who've joined us.
Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
have to give them some time. You know how people go. They pop in, and it's dinner time. So
What could be more interesting than a talk about telescopes?
At dinner time.
Yeah, indeed. So I'm going to close the YouTube window. Kevin Rasso, hey! I got to say hello. That's a friend of mine up in Georgia. Kevin does does Coffee and Cosmos in Perry, Georgia.
Nice.
He's my Coffee and Cosmos cohort up there.
Nice.
So yeah. All right, now I got to
Gone
close
live
the.
there? Have they gone live lately?
No, nobody's doing anything live lately,
okay.
unfortunately. But
I'd go to Georgia to do that.
yeah. All right. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of kick off with some preliminary stuff. So welcome everyone who's tuning in to our How to Pick a Telescope
There you
webinar/forum presented by the Central Florida Astronomical Society. We have myself, Richard Wright, and Derek Demeter, Frank Kane, Eric Hoyne, and Lynn Ward, along with some other contributing members from the from the society who are on Zoom. Those of us who are mainly presenting and talking have been involved in amateur astronomy for many years, been involved in the astronomy club for probably decades for some of us, and been on the board of directors in one role or another. Some of us here have been on the board in every conceivable role at one point in time. And so this public webinar is going to be just kind of an open forum discussion about how to pick a telescope. And I put together a few slides just to kind of lay some groundwork. Frank also has some slides on imaging. I'm going to focus mostly on visual, which is kind of odd because I'm mostly an imager myself. And then we're going to argue about them. Everybody's going to talk about their favorite kind of telescope and why. And if you have any questions, submit them on the YouTube page, and we will try to get them. But right now, a lot of people are getting into the astronomy hobby, and we all think, pretty much everybody in the club has started with this telescope here on the left or something like that, and then after a few years, we dream of having something big in the backyard or something that we can take out into the country to look at our deep sky miracles. And I think the number one mistake people make when they buy a telescope is they often get carried away. Mm-hmm. And like one of my best words of advice is don't get carried away. Do not buy the biggest, most expensive thing you can afford that's really complicated. Start with something very simple. Something that's going to be a lot of trouble to set up, you're not going to want to set up on a regular basis. If you can wheel it out of the garage or drag it out of the shed and set it up in the yard and be going in 5 minutes, you're going to use that all the time to look at things. Or you're going to throw it in the car and take it to the state park or take it on vacation with you. Also, what do you want to look at with your telescope? Like many things, it's kind of like which is better, a car or a truck? Well, it depends on what you want to do. And telescopes are the same way. What do you want to do with a telescope? Do you want to look at everything? Are you mostly interested in the moon and planets, or do you want to do deep sky, really deep sky objects under dark places? I just love this picture because it's a really giant telescope. And like I said, and I work for a hardware vendor actually in the industry. And I have to say that we get a lot of customers who they had a lot of money and they wanted to buy the best. And the best is this gigantic thing that it's like buying a 747. Where are you going to put it in your driveway? Start with an ultralight, start with a Cessna, start with something that you can enjoy, and then move up to something bigger later on. Also, we all want the big numbers, right? It's like megapixels on your cameras, long focal lengths. So we have lots of magnification. And I'll talk more about this in a minute, but lots of magnification is actually not what a telescope does, which is counterintuitive to people who are just getting started in astronomy and looking for a telescope for the first time. If you're into photography, there's a difference in the way we refer to telescopes and the way we refer to cameras. With a camera, when we say it's a 200 millimeter camera, we're talking about the focal length of the camera or how much zoom factor you have, which is the scale of your image, on your camera. And this means it makes small things that are far away really big. But that's not a telescope's primary job. A telescope's primary job is to gather light. And so when we say a 200 millimeter telescope, we mean a telescope that's 200 millimeters wide. That's the aperture. How much light does it let in? And the primary, most important job of a telescope is to gather light, because gathering light makes very dim things bright. It's very surprising, but a lot of the things that are over your head are actually quite large. Here's an image of a deep sky nebula next to a photo of the moon. I did not take this with one exposure, all right? You can't take a picture of a very bright object and a very dim object at the same time, but I did take this with the same camera and the same lens. It's actually a 200 millimeter telephoto camera lens hooked to a camera. And I didn't crop it, which means shrink the image or anything. This is a scale image of the Heart Nebula, which is in the northern sky, and our moon above our sky. This nebula is many, many times larger than a full moon. And it comes up every night for about half of the year. But you can't see it. It's too dim. There's no way, even with binoculars, you can't see it. You might can see some of the bright stars in the middle here, but you can't see this nebula. You need a telescope in order to see that, to gather all of that light. In this case, it was a camera which gathered light for about 20 minutes to get this exposure. And this object was 40,000 times dimmer than the moon in this particular image. So there's quite a bit of a brightness range difference there. The telescope doesn't do the magnifying. The primary job of magnification is in the eyepiece that you put at the back of the telescope. And there are just like there are all kinds of telescopes, there are all kinds of eyepieces that you can buy, and each one is ideally suited for different purposes. The magnification of what you're looking at is the focal length of the telescope divided by the focal length of the eyepiece. So it's just a division problem. So if you have a 1,000 millimeter focal length telescope and a 20 millimeter eyepiece, then you're at about 50 times magnification. And 50 times magnification is actually quite a bit of magnification for deep sky objects, or even the moon. The moon looks, you're crawling right up the moon at 50x with craters and Maria and all sorts of features that are there. Another thing that you need to understand about telescopes is the visual experience. On the side of the box of the telescope, there will be a photograph like this. And when you look through the eyepiece, this object is going to look more like this. It's going to look more like a fuzzy blob. Now, it depends on the object, but galaxies and nebula, it's a little bug in my room, I had to swat that away. Galaxies and nebula tend to be fuzzy blobs. Now, I started off visual and I got into imaging and went back to visual, but the one thing I don't like visual is the fuzzy blobs. However, a lot of people get really excited. That little fuzzy blob is light that took X million years to get here from that galaxy. And under a dark sky, those blobs actually have some shape to them. Now, there are many objects, though, that look better in a telescope than they do in a camera. And I say that as a die-hard astrophotographer. Star clusters, globular clusters, and open clusters both, they have this powdery, shattered diamond, and the dynamic range, the range of brightness from what you can see that can't be reproduced by a computer screen or by a printer. And looking at them through a telescope is just a magical type of experience. And this is true of telescopes of all sizes. Another object that I think is underappreciated with a telescope is the moon. I think the moon actually, this view of the moon comes close to what it looks like in an eyepiece, but I think the eyepiece view is a lot creamier. There's more subtlety. You don't get the white blown out areas, and you see more details on the moon than you do by taking a photograph of the moon through the telescope. And the moon is up all the time. Well, on a regular basis, and you can see the moon fine even from a parking lot with street lights overhead. The planets also work really well through a telescope where you don't need a camera. In fact, most of us at the Astronomy Club who do outreach will tell you a lot of people, the first time they look at Saturn through a telescope, they think it's fake. They're like, that looks like a picture of Saturn. And I say, no, pictures of Saturn look like what you're looking at, because you're actually looking at the planet, and the planets look really nice through a telescope. So with that out of the way, let's talk just a little bit about telescope technology. There are really three kinds of telescopes, really two, and then a blend of them. We'll talk about refractors. A refractor telescope is a big long tube with glass at the end. And that glass is a giant magnifying lens. And there may be multiple layers of those and different kinds of glass. And, this kind of super fluorite, FLP, blah, blah, blah stuff that to most people doesn't make any sense. And all those numbers mean is you're going to pay more for your refractor, and you get a slightly better quality image, sometimes based on the types of glass that are there. The refining characteristic of a refractor is they have exceptional contrast and sharpness as far as their design. The trade-offs are you get a little bit of field curvature, which with an eyepiece you're probably not going to notice. Chromatic aberration is where sometimes the telescope acts as like a little bit of a prism and the colors will separate. So you'll see a slight pink halo or a slight red or a slight green, blue. It depends on the manufacturer, but sometimes you'll get some around really bright objects. You'll get a little bit of a colored halo. Here's a photograph I took of the moon where there's a little bit of purple haze, cue the Jimi Hendrix song, over that moon. Quality refractors tend to be very expensive, but they're very compact and very easy to maintain. And you can get a small refractor for a very reasonable amount of money. Probably the most bang for the buck, a lot of people start with a reflector. Now, a reflector has a mirror in it, a curved mirror, and that curved mirror gathers light and focuses it to a magnified image that works with your eyepiece. They have a mirror in the back, and usually you actually look in the front. So back here is the mirror. The opening here is where the light comes in, and then you look in this little opening here. A favorite thing for the Astronomy Club to do is to find advertisements that have telescopes in them. They almost always have a reflector, and it's upside down. And they have people looking at this opening here, but the opening is actually pointed at the ground. And if you look carefully, you can find that. And nobody cares but us, but it's a cool thing that we see all the time. Trade-offs, slight trade-off in sharpness and contrast, but typically it is your best performance for as far as money is concerned. One of the optical aberrations is, see this little cross thing up here that's holding a mirror. We call that the spider vane, and it makes these diffraction spikes around objects. So it makes the stars sparkle. Technically, that's an optical aberration, but a lot of people really like that sparkle. It just kind of adds a little bit of punch. In fact, some photographers will go in and they'll add that sparkle after the fact just because they like it so much. A lot of amateur scopes, too, are what we call a catadioptric, and that is a combination of mirrors and glass trying to capitalize on the both of them. You know, they tend to be very small, and so that's really nice. Manufacturers like Meade and Celestron are probably the two most common manufacturers of these types of telescopes, and they have a very wide range of price from, you know, the cost of a nice fishing rod or golf clubs up to the cost of maybe a second home, depending on what you want to put into it. How do you mount your telescope? So a lot of people who aren't into astronomy, they think of the telescope and the mount as one thing, like this whole thing is a telescope. And at the low end, tie them together. But in the higher end of the market, as we get more advanced, we start to break it apart, and you buy the mount and the telescope separately. And you know, there's basically two types of mounts that we worry about. There are other kinds, but in general, we have something called an equatorial mount, or a German equatorial mount. Sometimes you'll see it abbreviated GEM for GEM. And they're very popular mostly with photographers because they track the sky, and you can put a camera on them, and it tracks really well. These do require some polar alignment, which means you've got to line it up with the pole star. So you have to have, Polaris has to be visible for best results. And it can be a frustrating exercise when you're a beginner. I know for me, it was quite a bit of my first telescope was a German, well, my second one. I wanted the best, right? So I bought one like this, and it was really hard to use, and it was very frustrating. The other type of mount is called alt-az, and that's because the mount moves in two directions, altitude and azimuth, which is just basically up and down and sideways. These are the easiest to use. Computerized alt-az mounts are available from a lot of manufacturers. Some of them come with a GPS, so they know the time and your location on Earth. Part of me says if you can't tell time and don't know where you are, you probably shouldn't be buying a telescope anyway. But hey, that's neither here nor there. Now the alt-az mounts, this is a computerized alt-az mount. Another mount we'll talk about is a Dobsonian mount. And a Dobsonian mount is really just an alt-az, but it's a very simple push-to alt-az. It was popularized by a man named James Dobson, and so we call it the Dobsonian mount. He was very well known for handmade telescopes. We have a guy here who's going to talk to you about his homemade Dobsonian as well. But John Dobson did his own. Did this and popularized sidewalk astronomy. Now, this is a really big Dobsonian. but you can also get them in kid size. And this little bitty one here, these are my two boys out in the driveway. This was probably 20 years ago when this photo was taken. But I didn't buy this for them. I bought this for me, actually. It was just a couple of $100. And it was one of those, sometimes there's something going on and I just want to grab it out of the garage and plop it on the hood of my car and look real quick. And this is very convenient because, you know, Daddy's telescope was this big monstrosity that took 45 minutes to set up in the driveway. So I could grab this, plop it on there and take a quick look at the planets or the moon or a comet that was coming by. And that was great. In our club, we've got a lot of Dobsonian fans. We've got a lot of German equatorial fans. We have a lot of Altaz fans. And we also have a lot of refractor, reflector, and combination fans. And we'll talk about that. So what's the best scope for you? That's kind of what we're going to spend some time going back and forth with. It depends on what your goals are. Do you want to be able to take it with you? Also, what is your budget? And how much care and feeding are you willing? And also consider a la carte if you're not constrained to just having a small amount of money and you need to buy it. If you're really going for a boutique experience, a nice small telescope with a high quality refractor and a high quality small mount is a great way to get started in the hobby as well. And I do have a list of places where you can buy telescopes, but I think I'll put that up last. Plus, I think some of my co-hosts here may have some additions they want to make to it. But that is actually the end of my little sort of get started presentation. How are we doing on questions and answers and things?
No questions on YouTube as of now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Frank,
nothing in the chat.
yeah. Frank, do you want to talk about your experience as an imager?
Sure. Let me pull up my presentation here. Bear with me.
Frank has a magic driveway by the way.
Oh, you'll see it. You'll see it.
He's got the best driveway in the club. In fact, we should have the next star party at Frank's house and just all set up in his driveway.
I might be moving though. It's going to be a new driveway, but more on that later. Yep. All right, share screen. We want that one. All right, are we live?
There we go.
Excellent. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of talk about my journey as an astrophotographer and the sequence of telescopes that I've bought along the way. So this will tie into a lot of stuff that Richard was talking about. Oh, and by the way, quick plug for CFAS.org for those of you watching us on YouTube who aren't yet members of CFAS. Shame on you. Go to CFAS.org and join us. It's cheap, and you get to hang out with people who can really help you along on your own journey for buying a telescope. And that's part of my story too, actually. So this is my first telescope. It was as Richard said, a cat-eye dioptric telescope. Technically, it's called a Schmidt-Cassegrain. And this is a pretty popular model that I've seen out at star parties for people that are kind of getting into it. This is called a Celestron Nexstar 8 SE, and there are many like it, but the point is that A, it's an alt-az mount, so it's much easier to set up in the field or on your driveway or wherever you are. You don't have to worry about aligning it perfectly to north and all that nonsense. And it's computerized. So you'll notice that little handset on the side there. That allows you to punch in anything that's in the sky tonight and push a button. And once you've initially aligned things, which takes a little bit of getting used to, it will point more or less to where that thing is in the sky for you. And this may sound like cheating, and it is. But the advantage is that if you're in suburbia, like I am, where you have a lot of light pollution and you can't see a lot of stars, it makes life a lot easier when you're trying to find things. So if you want to get that sort of immediate payoff when you're getting started and not really struggle in finding things, you just want to look at them, this is kind of a quick way to get started. Now, mind you, really bright objects, the best objects to look at, like the planets and the moon, are not going to be hard to find in any system. But when you want to graduate and kind of go to brighter galaxies and maybe some of the brighter nebulas, like the Orion Nebula, this can make life a little bit easier. So that's how I got started. And it was a great way to learn and get the hang of how telescopes work and learn my way around the night sky a little bit. But as I soon found out, it's great for looking at the sky and sharing views of the sky with other people, but it's not really great for imaging. It's good for learning and exploring. Imaging, not so much. But you can dip your toes in the photography waters with it, so to speak, by sticking a DSLR camera on the back of it, a Canon or a Sony, whatever you like. And it actually is really good for photographing the moon. So it turns out to have just the right size and properties to photograph the moon. The moon is nice and bright, has a lot of cool details on it. It's big, you can't miss it. So if you want to get started with astrophotography, the moon makes a great target. And pretty much any telescope where you can get an adapter for your camera will produce good results. So this is probably how you will start to get addicted to astrophotography the first time you do this. This is an actual photo that I took using that telescope I just showed you during a lunar eclipse that we had a couple of years ago. It was just a sequence of 15-minute apart photos of the moon as it went into the shadow of the Earth. And it's really cool. But eventually you want more. So this is the slippery slope that I think Richard was referring to. Eventually you want something bigger, something fancier. And if you want to take, really fancy images of nebulas and galaxies and things like that, you're going to need something more sophisticated. So this was actually in my second system. This is a refractor telescope, again, tying back to what we were talking about earlier. And again, this does give you a lot of bang for the buck. So the telescope itself, we call that the optical tube assembly on the top, that big black tube, that costs about $1,500, which as telescopes go isn't too bad, especially for one that's almost 8 inches in diameter. It's actually technically a Maksutov Newtonian style telescope. And this is different from a standard Newtonian in that it has a corrector lens on the front of it that corrects for field curvature. So for astrophotography, it gives you a much more uniform result across the field of your photograph, which is important. You start to worry about that stuff after a while. Also, it has a nice focal ratio. What do we mean by focal ratio? Well, that's basically the ratio between the aperture and the focal length. So there's this trade-off between how much light you're gathering, how big your mirror is, and how much magnification you have. And getting that right can be important, especially when you're trying to make images out in suburbia and combating light pollution. So the only way to really get around light pollution is to just suck in as much light as possible and try to get as much light from the thing you're looking at to the point where it starts to wash out all the background light pollution in the back. So we want what's called a fast telescope to accomplish that. And f5.3, lower numbers are faster. So that's considered fast. Compare that to the first telescope I showed you that had a native focal ratio of f10. So basically this telescope can gather as much information or as much light. How do I put that more succinctly? It gathers light twice as fast as the other one did. And also it has a very good field of view. So 1000 millimeters is just the right magnification to capture most of the interesting things in the sky. So it turns out to be kind of a sweet spot for getting most of the nebulas. Some are still too big for it. Some galaxies are still too big for it, but it turns out to be kind of a sweet spot for things that you might want to image in your backyard. It is sitting on a mount, and that big purple red thing. It turns out that is way more important than the telescope itself if you're going to be doing imaging. This is actually a Paramount MIT mount, and that mount cost about 3 times more than the telescope itself did, and that's normal. That's how it should be if you want to be doing serious astrophotography. Because to do astrophotography, you need to make really long exposures, or actually many series of long exposures over the course of an entire night. And for that to actually align and be crisp and nicely focused at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you can track whatever you're looking at in the sky with exceptional accuracy. As the Earth turns, the things in the sky move across the sky, and your telescope has to match that rate exactly in order to get the right result. And it turns out that's a very hard thing to do, and a quality mount is really key to being able to do that. It also uses a specialized camera. It's an Attic 383L Plus cooled CCD camera. Don't worry about the details of that later, but just know that when you outgrow your DSLR camera, there's a whole other level there where you can, get even fancier equipment that is even more sensitive to light in the night sky. And in addition, there's a bunch of automation stuff tacked on top of there as well, so I can actually remotely control this thing and have it automate what it's doing all night long, even while I sleep, which again comes in handy. The downside is it's not easy to use, it's complicated, and it's definitely not cheap either. So you're looking at probably over $10,000 in this setup here that you're looking at here, which is a lot. But if you compare that to, a jet ski or something, as adult hobbies go, it's not that unreasonable. But again, this is sort of
boats.
What's that?
Price bass boats sometimes.
Oh, bass boats are outrageous.
Fishing can cost you more than this, easy.
Totally. And, this is this is something you can do in your backyard as opposed to, hauling a boat out to who knows where. So in some ways, it's more rewarding and easier to do. So yeah, look at it that way. That's how I justify it anyway. Cool. But the payoff is this. These are the types of pictures you can take with a system like that. So these are a few images that I took myself using that exact same setup there. And I do want to point out too that it was through CFAS that I got the tips to buy that system originally. So it really does help to be a member of a society like CFAS, so you can sort of learn from each other and pick the brains of people who are further along in their journey than you are and follow in their footsteps, which is exactly what I've done. But yeah, these are, you're looking at Bode's galaxy there up in the upper left, and a series of nebulas. That's the Crescent Nebula, the Pac-Man Nebula, and the Bubble Nebula, all taken through that system. And I don't want to get into the details of how you make this happen. The important thing is that with enough practice and skill and fancy
From
software.
his driveway.
Yes, exactly.
From his driveway.
From my suburban driveway in Winter Springs, mind you. So this
Yep.
is combating quite a bit of light pollution as well. And this is possible, guys. So, this is where it can lead you, which I think is pretty damn cool. The other way you can go is planetary imaging. So if you want to take pictures of Mars and Jupiter and Saturn, that's an entirely different ball of wax. And it's also a very worthwhile endeavor, especially here in Florida, which I'll talk about more too. For that, I just kind of got the big brother of that original telescope that I had. So the first telescope I had was a 8-inch Celestron Schmidt-Cassegrain. This is an 11-inch model, which costs more. But, that extra aperture lets you capture more detail on the planets. So, and there's also a specialized camera that you want to use with that if you're going to be imaging planets. It's actually a little webcam, really, a little video camera. It's relatively inexpensive. The camera's only like $200. It's sitting on that same MIT mount. You could get away with something lower end for planetary imaging, but that's what I have, so it's what I use. And it does make life better if you have a nice mount, because you don't have to worry about constantly adjusting the telescope to keep the planet in the center of your imaging chip all the time. So it's handy to have a good mount even for planetary imaging. There's a whole world of specialized software for doing this, and we're actually going to have a session on this next month to coincide with when Mars will be at its brightest and biggest approach to Earth this year. But it's also a very rewarding field to get into, and you can get away with less than what this system is. Around 9¼ inches aperture is kind of the sweet spot where you start to get really good results and really good resolution on your images. And this is an example of what you can get from a system like that, again, from my driveway. This is Saturn and Jupiter taken just a few nights ago, actually.
Amazing.
And thank you. Yeah. It blows my mind that you can actually observe the weather on other planets from your backyard, in Central Florida. But we're actually uniquely positioned in Central Florida to do this sort of a thing. So it's really exciting to get into planetary imaging in Florida, because we have all sorts of advantages over other parts of the country. Because we have a southern latitude, that means that the planets are generally much higher in the sky than they would be for our friends up, in New York or something like that. And the higher up in the sky something is, the better the picture you'll get of it. And, you can learn the techniques for doing this with a starter scope, like an 8-inch aperture one. But again, you really need a 9¼ inch or better to get images like this. Also, Florida, because there's no mountains around us and there's a big Gulf of Mexico to our west, we sometimes have these periods of really nice, still atmosphere above us. And that leads to really crystal clear images of the planets, where you don't have all sorts of atmospheric turbulence distorting things. So Florida has a few unfair advantages compared to other parts of the world for planetary imaging. So that's an especially rewarding thing to get into here. And that's all I got, guys. So I'm going to stop my share, I think.
That's great, though. Thanks.
Fabulous.
Thank you. Hey, can a co-host forcibly stop my sharing? Because I'm pushing the button and nothing's happening.
Stop. I got it.
All right, thanks.
I thought I did. It said I've stopped your sharing, but I still see it shared.
You're just a sharing person, Frank.
Apparently so.
Help me before I share again.
What the heck?
Maybe I can. Maybe if I share, it will
maybe
force
can
you
take
out.
over.
Okay, I think that may have worked. And now I'll stop the share.
No.
Well, you're back.
Sorry, folks. Zoom is failing us.
Well, while we're doing that, anyone
try it
have any
again.
questions or
Yeah.
any
How are we doing on questions?
comments or?
Well, someone asks, what is CFAS? Bob Mackey asks.
CFAS?
I'm actually not sure myself.
I've never heard of it before.
No.
I know what it means in computer graphics, but
yeah, exactly. That's like a depth test.
So while I guess Frank is working on that, I want to. So one of the things that a lot of people ask me is, can I buy a telescope over at Walmart or any other type store like that? And it's always a good recommendation to purchase your telescope from an actual either reputable source, like the actual source itself. So, for example, you can purchase directly from Celestron. You can purchase directly from some of these other telescope manufacturers like Orion telescopes. But the other option is there are several stores that you can, online stores that you can purchase from, these different telescope systems.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite.
Can you see my screen share, Derek?
I cannot. No, I'm just looking at Frank's.
Okay, because I have a slide on that exactly.
Okay, good. Well, hey, I'm trying.
But yeah, what Derek says, eventually I'll put up a slide to back him up, but never mind. Anyway, sorry for interrupting, but
No, that's good. It's relevant. So one of my favorite places to shop is Oceanside Pacific and Photo and Telescope, and Oceanside Photo and Telescope (OPT), and they are a very good place for purchasing. Oh, there we go. We finally got it.
There we are.
All right. And this is a great location for purchasing telescope equipment. There's also, Woodland Optics. There's several others. And of course, I know, Richard, you were going to put up a page that showed all of these.
there we go.
So pretty much these are the ones that you kind of want to focus on if you're in the United States. There's several other websites that are if you're in other parts of the world, but essentially you want to find a dealer that actually works with these telescope manufacturers. You do not want to buy something from a big box store like Walmart or Costco or BJ's or anything.
Take a photo of this.
There's a lot of questionable stuff on Amazon and eBay, and trying to pick out something good. Use a dealer. Just use a dealer so that you can talk to a real human being on the phone, like Derek said, and they'll support you and they can talk to you about what your goals are. And so, yeah, I
want to also second what both Richard and Frank said about going small first. My very first telescope that I used was a 4-inch reflector, Newtonian reflector telescope from Meade. It was 114 millimeter, or so it was a 4.5, I should say, a 114 millimeter telescope. And, this was a great telescope for me to use to learn. It gave me a chance, gave me the confidence I needed to find things like the planets, the moon, bright objects that you can see in suburban, even urban skies. If you're in the middle of a big city, you can catch the moon, you can catch the planets. And really the thing that most beginner astronomers have issues with, or people that want to look through a telescope, is focus and trying to point the telescope. But the other thing that a lot of people have struggled with, especially if they're using a equatorial mount, that's the mount that both Richard and Frank talked about with the counterweight system that actually connects to and points towards the North Star or the Southern Star. You never know. We're on YouTube, so there might be people from the Southern Hemisphere watching this program. Any pole star, basically. You have to balance the telescope. So a lot of times people who are not using go-to/electronic type mounts, and you're using a manual adjustment mount that has, counterweights and things like that, the most difficult thing that a lot of people have is balancing the telescope, which basically means that you would balance the weight of the telescope against the weight of the equatorial mount. and also then balancing it to shift based on 2 degrees, the right ascension declination, which we could talk about in another hour. That gets into a little bit more advanced topics, but that's one of the most important things you want to work on when you get a new telescope. But really, the best type of telescope to start off with is a altitude azimuth. One of those ones where you kind of have like a sleigh that you kind of move it back and forth and up and down, 2 degrees up, looking at the position of the star up from the horizon and around the sky, which we call the azimuth. If you're a Navy person or a maritime person, you might use the word heading. Heading is another term for azimuth, basically 365 degrees north, south, east, and west. Then you have your altitude. The altitude, the height of the star relative to the horizon, which is the bottom of the sky where the sky and the land meet. In my opinion, those are the best telescopes to use. And that's actually what I used for my very first scope. And it is a great way to kind of just focus on getting used to moving a telescope around and pointing that telescope to whatever you want to be interested in. And that comes to the next difficult thing that a lot of people who are new to the hobby have, and that's aligning your finder scope or something that allows you to center the object into your telescope. So usually there's several different types of setups. You have a individual smaller finder scope, looks like a little tiny telescope that goes on the side of your telescope that gives you a very, very extremely wide field of view, but a little bit more magnification so you can get an idea of what you're looking at. And a lot of times those aren't aligned with what the telescope is seeing. So one of the things that is really good to learn if you're getting a telescope is get something that has a really nice finder scope. Now, one of the other things that's really nice, which I like, are laser finders. Instead of using a telescope type finder, using a finder that has a little kind of almost a hologram type mirror system that has a laser or a target that actually allows you to target directly onto the object, and it makes it super easy to use. So one of the most important things when buying a telescope first is to make sure you get something that A, you feel comfortable with, B, that you know that you can get out there and point and look at least the moon and the planets. Once you find those things and you feel very comfortable finding the planets and the moon and brighter objects, then you can graduate into going into more advanced stuff. Maybe you can get a better finder scope or better eyepieces, things like that. So don't feel bad about going with a smaller setup and working your way up. It's better to do that than to go with some big giant monstrosity and then becoming extremely frustrated with it and you don't want to take it out. So something to keep in mind, I learned from using a very small telescope relatively compared to stuff I use now. And it helped me a lot with the skills to understand the sky, to understand how to move telescopes, to balance them, all that stuff that will really help you in the long run in the future.
Yeah, I want to point out too that a small telescope is not necessarily a beginner's telescope. I've been observing for 40 years, and I probably have the largest collection of telescopes as anybody in the club with, it's north of a dozen telescopes. And most of them are fairly small. The smaller telescopes are like sports cars. They're very easy to use. And most of the time what you're looking at, they work very, very well. And that's for visual and for photography. I sometimes I have no desire for one of those gigantic telescopes that's like, many, many, many inches across in an I want an observatory, but I want it to store all my small telescopes in. The small scopes do really well. The telescope Frank was showing, those are about the biggest telescopes I have. I have one larger than that, and I hardly ever use it. So, don't equate small telescopes with beginner telescopes at all. You will not outgrow a small telescope necessarily by any stretch of the imagination.
Yep. Yeah, the best telescope is the one that you use the most. And if it's big and heavy and difficult to lug around, you're not going to use it. And that does tie into some questions we're getting on the comments. There's sort of a discussion going on what do you recommend for a beginner to get. So if we have any concrete recommendations of
Dobbs.
Yeah, and I think that ties in well to Eric.
Dobsonians are the best beginner telescope. Fight me. That's absolutely.
Two pieces. I mean, you can set it up in 30 seconds. And it's the sacrificial scope, and it looks like it's going to rain. You know, that's like,
Eric,
it's to set up and put away.
Eric built his own Dobsonian.
Right.
And he comes up and helps me at my Starbucks outreach. And they say, okay, let's get set up. And I open the trunk and I turn around and he's like, well, you done yet?
And I found Venus already.
Just
you know?
boom. He's up and going.
That's his goal. That's always his goal. Yeah.
He's twiddling his thumbs. Are you done yet, Richard? Can I leave? Can I leave? Like, yeah, go ahead.
My work is done. Yeah.
Yep.
So a good one is that I really like is an 8-inch size Dobsonian. You get a lot of light gathering ability for the weight, and it's easy to use. 8 to 10 inches is a really good beginning type because like what Richard said, you're not going to outgrow that. I mean, I still pull out an 8-inch telescope, a 10-inch telescope, and use it at our dark sky locations, at our Geneva night sky programs. And I love it, you know. And so, and that's a great one, as Eric was mentioning. You know, if you just want to do visual observing, you just grab that thing and you set it up, and you don't need to spend hours and hours and hours. One of our members of our organization has a really nice large telescope that he sets up during an outreach, but it takes him hours to set it up and then takes him another hour to break it down. And it's like, you know, it becomes increasingly difficult to do that all the time.
Yeah, this is so convenient for outreach. And it's easily accessible to children, if children are looking. You know, so at its highest point for the eyepiece, it's about, say, 5 foot. So you have a small step ladder, child comes up, takes a look on there, and not many moving parts either.
That is very simple. That is very simple.
It's azimuth, up, down, and then sideways. And as far as weight goes, we're talking maybe 50 pounds for the total outfit.
Now, another good starter scope would be a small refractor on an Altaz mount.
Explore Scientific sells a really great.
Explore Scientific.
It's only about $250. It's an achromatic, so it does have that purple hue on it, but honestly, that's only really noticeable in bright objects like the moon and the planets.
And only at the very limb. If you're looking at craters and things, you're not going to notice that at all.
Exactly. So it's a fantastic telescope, and for the price, you know, of $500, you can have a fully ready to go with a few eyepieces, and you're good. And then you can upgrade upgrade that once you move forward. You know, so that a small refractor, a Dobsonian. I mean, people have asked me, should I get the one with the automated go-to stuff? It really depends on your budget. If you can afford it, it will help you down the road. But sometimes as a stargazer myself, I actually feel like that's a great way to learn the sky. However, there are some really obscure objects that become much more difficult without you know, if you have the ability to afford the go-to, it's a nice addition. But some people might go, well, I only can afford $500. And you could do that very easily with a Dobsonian or a small refractor.
Right.
And you could get a lot of telescope for little money.
So, Lynn, what do you think? Just let's mix it up a little bit. What do you think is the best overall kind of telescope? Is there an answer to that question? If so, what do you think it is? Because I know you've had several types of telescopes too.
Yes, I've had. I started out with one of the 114 millimeter Newtonians on a manually operated equatorial drive. I think that's a great one for being pretty round for most any purpose with a beginner. It reduces the overall cost tremendously, and you get a lot more aperture.
And remember, aperture is how big around the telescope is. That is one of the primary things.
Now, there's also the small Dobsonian that I have that belongs to the club. I find that to be really nice. Okay, no, not that one.
Not that one. Better than that. but not that.
It looks a lot like the one behind Eric and your large one there,
Okay.
but it's much smaller. This is only a 6-inch opening at the end.
I've got a photo of that, Lynn. I'll pull it up.
And yeah, I've got a photo too, but I'm not shareable here right now. The it comes in real handy at outreach for youngsters. I can put them to it and teach them how to use it, and they're just blown away by being able to do it themselves. With a big one like what is displayed right now, a youngster is not big enough to handle it well.
Yeah, you need a step ladder
Right.
for one of the bigger ones. And even
Right.
I've seen them at star parties where there's people have legit big ladders, like the adult versions, like that make this one look like a tiny scope.
Yeah.
You have to climb a few
Here, Lynn.
flights up a ladder to look through the eyepiece.
Yeah, that's the one.
There we go.
That's my picture.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Here, I'm gonna cover it up. Oh, he can't take a look now. Anyway, but that's it. Yeah, and the thing is with this telescope that you're seeing in the photo there, Len has taken it to the outreaches and that sort of thing, and has a little, junior astronomy card that he hands out.
I created a license
Yeah.
for learning how to be an operator of that telescope.
And the children are just drawn to it.
Yeah.
And the parents are so proud of their children for just, let's find the moon, let's find Jupiter. And Len does a fantastic job just describing and showing them how it moves. And then the children find the objects themselves and they're just elated.
Yeah, that scope is a fantastic scope for children, and it gives you enough light gathering ability to actually see things that are, dark sky objects too. So they can learn how to find, the Orion Nebula or some of the brighter star clusters. So they really feel like they are truly an astronomer. I mean, you could find the moon, that's great, but when you're a young kid, like when I was young and I could find a cluster of stars, it made you empowered. It made you feel like, wow, I could do this. So, having a little bit bigger telescope, like a 6-inch DOB for a child, is perfect because it does give you
just their size. Yeah, it's just their size.
Very good. Cool. Now, if you, let me start another argument, just for educational purposes. If you want to know at the other end, like, if you have the means, what is the best quality? So if you want, if you are into optical purity and you want the sharpest image with no color, and you just, amazing details on splitting double stars and fine detail on the moon, there's nothing better, in my opinion, and I do not speak for CFAS, and this is a subjective opinion. It's not, it just happens to be a fact. I always say about bias, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It just makes being right more fun. But I think a premium refractor is the pinnacle of performance in terms of quality. And a small, portable premium refractor is a great beginner scope that you will never, ever outgrow. No matter how your skill level can progress tremendously over decades, and you're never going to outgrow that small premium refractor for looking at globular clusters, open clusters, the planets, the moon, those sorts of things. And all right, so fight me. Yeah, Eric, what do you think?
To add on to that with your refractors and that, visually, and if you're imaging too, don't forget your solar filters.
Yes,
you can do with a solar filter.
Yes, and there are white light filters that go over the front of the telescope, and that reduces the light going into it. There are some filters that go on the back of the telescope, but you need to be, they usually plug into some electricity or something. Don't get like a disc that threads into the eyepiece that you then put in line with the view. It's a very dangerous thing to talk about. When you're a beginner, you can permanently damage your eye, and there's no going back from that. So, yeah, you should probably consult with an expert on that. And nothing that you're going to find at Walmart or Amazon or eBay is you should. You know what's a great idea? Join a local astronomy club and hang out with some other people who can advise you on these sorts of things. You know, if I woke up in the morning and I wanted to get into alligator hunting, I would not just go to Walmart and buy a big ass gun. Oops, sorry. A big gun. Frank, you can bleep that out when you edit that later. You know, and a boat and a motor, and then go off to Lake Okeechobee and go, okay, let's go hunt some alligators. You know, you got to do a little, you should do a little bit of homework, and I would probably find somebody else who's done that and team up with them. So like any hobby, you'll reduce your frustration greatly if you find some like-minded people to mentor you. And most people don't mind being a mentor. We enjoy it. Our families think we're nuts, so we're perfectly happy to have another person who wants us to share our knowledge and experience with.
Yeah, I would say that one of my favorite telescopes that I own is my William Optics 81 millimeter APO refractor, and that was about $1,500. And it might sound a lot to some, but the fact that this telescope is one of my premium telescopes, and it's small, weighs only about 20 pounds. Very, very nice telescope. Goes on even the light mounts. And gives me a very, very nice view of the Orion Nebula, the Pleiades, some of these other large objects of the Andromeda Galaxy. You can use this for visual, but when you're ready to go into astrophotography, I had a gentleman a couple of weeks ago message me on Facebook and said, "Hey, I'm interested in buying a telescope, but my hope and dream is to go to do astrophotography." Well, if you are, if you're an adult and you have some money, and this person, not judging them, but they had a nice set of mountain bikes that were well over a couple $1,000s each. Obviously this gentleman had some money to spend. I recommended to him a high-end small refractor because he would be able to use that to learn, but he would be able to graduate that telescope to use for astrophotography, and he would be happy with it, and he would be happy with it for a very long time. So if you do have money to burn, and as Richard toyed around the idea, a refractor, an APO refractor is a great setup. Now, of course, the thing is, if you get anything larger than, say, a 6-inch refractor, that thing's going to get big and it's going to hit very, very heavy. Eric, you know this very well. You and I worked at the Orlando Science Center, and we had a 10-inch refractor. That thing is a beast, but a 10-inch Dobsonian is a lot smaller. So the other telescope that I have, which is the same one that Frank has, is a Magnetov Newtonian, which has a corrector plate in front, and it has a mirror, and it does give you a very close, resolution of a refractor for half the price. And it's a very fast telescope. What that means is it can collect light pretty quickly, so you get a lot of light when you if you're doing astrophotography. You don't have to expose as long and things like that. So and then I guess my question is, what do you want it for? If you're wanting for planets, a small refractor might not be your best bet. You might want to get something like a big Edge HD that has a large focal length and a large focal ratio, so you can get those really nice details of planet Saturn or Jupiter or something like that. There are some people who just
I was going to start a fight.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not trying to fight. You should see Saturn in my 120 Esprit, buddy.
Hey. All the best planetary imagers in the world are using these big A-planet.
I'm not talking about imaging. I'm talking about visual. But yeah. So, and see, if you join the Central Florida Astronomers, if you join us, you can come to meetings and we can talk about this. We can literally talk about this stuff all night.
Right.
Very, very much. It's a lot like camera lenses. If you're doing regular photography, the difference between a $150 lens and a $1,000 lens is not really appreciated necessarily at first. Then once you do appreciate it and you've invested in those lenses, a lot of times you hang on to that lens. You might change camera bodies, but you keep the lens. The same thing with telescopes. If you're going to do imaging, if you start with a premium optic, very often you'll upgrade the mount over time. So you start with the mount that's better suited for short exposures and for visual, and then upgrade later to a mount that can do more precise tracking over longer exposures. But do we have any other questions on YouTube that we need to address, Frank?
Not really.
Okay,
There was a
good.
little bit of discussion going on about what the best beginner scope is, which is very much in line with what you're talking about.
And,
Okay.
and to reiterate, really, is if you can go out with this telescope night after night, then that's going to be your best telescope. If
Get
you're
some
somebody who has,
experience.
if
Get
you're
a
somebody
little
who
bit of
has
experience when you're doing
an injury that prevents you from lifting a very large telescope, and you get a smaller telescope, then that's your best telescope. If you're somebody who has the ability to afford the best of the best, then hey, so I think the key you want to ask yourself is, for beginning telescope is, do I see myself graduating from this? Am I really invested in this? Is this just a passing by, test the waters for a little bit? But if you go out there on every clear night and bring it out, then that's going to be the telescope that is right for you. And just like Richard said, it's like the Canon wars. Honestly, if you get whatever the end result is, even if it's a picture or a view of the planet Mars, if you're happy and satisfied with that, then that's really all that matters in the end of the day. If you're not, then you need more equipment. Like you got the fever forever.
So I also, we all start in the same place. I'm I don't think I'm exaggerating too much to say I'm a very accomplished astrophotographer and amateur astronomer. And this telescope right here, this focal telescope, that really is my first telescope. That's what I started with. My wife, when we were dating, all right, we've been married over 30 years. My wife bought that for me for Christmas when we were dating. And that, a lot of people will, there's a name called, sometimes you call that a trash scope, Christmas trash scopes. But I got a lot of mileage out of that telescope. I learned to find things in the sky. I split double stars with it. I explored the moon. It is a little bit, it's less than ideal, but it is so much more powerful and more capable than the telescope that Galileo Galilei had when he's had something. So no matter where you are, no matter how you start, it's a great hobby and pastime to be involved in. And we have 15 seconds left, and then we need to start our regular meeting.
So with that being said, join the Central Florida Astronomical Society and
yes, please
get a chance to learn some cool stuff about telescopes. We're hopefully, speaking for the observing chair of the organization, I hope that once things kind of get back up and running again, we get to meet you all and bring out that telescope that you purchased and let's learn together and do some observing. So hopefully we'll be able to do that once things start to get better. So thanks everybody, and thank you Richard, thank you Frank, and Eric.
Yeah, thanks everybody for participating. And it's 7 o'clock. It's time for CFAS. So if you're watching on YouTube, you are more than welcome to join us for our annual monthly meeting. And our monthly meetings are held online and virtually via Zoom, which is how most of the world is doing business these days. And so I want to welcome you. We've got a pretty packed program tonight. So I hope everybody enjoys it. I just want to say a few things before we get started. We usually launch into our main speaker first. It's not like those meetings you used to go to when your kids were little, where they did all the boring things at the beginning of the PTA meeting, and your kid always sang last, so you had to sit through everything. We do the presentations first, and then if you want to leave when we get down to club business, you can do that. But I do need to talk about a little bit of club business. Next month in October are our annual elections. We have 4 main elected positions, and then we also have 2 board members at large that rotate they're actually elected for 2-year terms. All the other terms are 1-year terms. Currently, myself, Richard Wright, president, I'm going to run again. If you'll have me, our Vice President Tricia Smedley and our Treasurer Ken Allingham are also willing to continue to serve. That does not mean that you cannot throw your hat in the ring and say, well, I could do a better job than Richard. I'm going to jump out there. And that's fine. I don't think in my memory anybody's ever I don't think there's ever been a contest for any of the positions, probably because it's just find whoever's not smart enough to say no. I didn't say that, but yeah, you know how it is to serve. Our secretary position is open. I'd like to thank Samira Blomel for her service as secretary. She's been a great voice at our board meetings. Occasionally, sometimes the only voice of compassion from time to time. So it's good to have a good, some different views on the board. Anna Metke is also our 2-year board member at large, and she's actually going to be running the election next month. So she's leaving. She is still going to be involved in the board as our committee chair for our education committee. The committee chairs are appointed, but these positions are elected. So we need a secretary and we need another board member at large. As far as committee chairs go, if you want to get involved, also we do need a membership chair as well. And that's a simple apply for the job sort of thing. Assuming I'm still president next month, you should contact me if you're interested in becoming the new membership chair. And contact Anna. Please don't wait until right before the next month's meeting. We want to send out a notice well ahead of the meeting to let people know who's running. And I think this may be the first time in CFAS's entire history we've had to do the voting online. But Zoom has capabilities for doing polls. So instead of a poll, we'll have an online means of doing that. And with that, that's all I'm going to blather about. We have a very exciting talk. I spoke with our speaker before the meeting for our technical run. Make sure he could share his screen and everything. And I'm very interested in hearing his talk. Trisha, are you around? I'm going to let you do that. Our vice president is actually in charge of programs. Trisha is the one who's been digging up all of our speakers of late to make sure that we have somebody new every month to talk about something exciting. And I'm going to stop sharing. I hear Trisha somewhere. Hello, Trisha.
Can you guys hear me?
I hear you. It sounds like you're in the next room, but I hear you. Just yell really loud.
Let me turn.
The neighbors will be really amused.
Can you hear me better now?
Same. I can hear you fine. Don't worry about it.
So tonight our main speaker is Ken Graun. Now you guys might recognize his planispheres. I'm actually going to make a link here in the chat box. So Ken is an author as well as an amateur astronomer, and tonight he's going to be speaking to us about the history of Messier and all about the Messier objects. So Ken, are you online right now?
I am. Can you hear me?
So yeah, so you're over in Arizona.
Yes.
And I found an interesting tidbit. I see here that you have a asteroid named after you, 9175. Is that correct?
It is correct. It is correct.
Okay, I'd like to hear that story. But thank you for speaking with us, Ken. And I'll go ahead and hand it over to you. And I look forward to hearing all about the history of Messier.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me. And the lighting in my home office is on the side, so it's hard to get full illumination of my face. But I'll be turning that off pretty soon, because I don't want to scare everyone away at the beginning anyway. But yes, tonight I'm going to talk about basically a little bit about the history of Charles Messier and also his catalog. And more importantly, I really want to leave you with the correct impression as to why he actually cataloged, deep sky objects. I want to clear that up because there's just been something that's been repeated over and over and over for years that's false. Okay, let me try to get started here with the share screen. Actually, it says the host disabled my screen sharing. So can one of you give me the screen sharing function, please?
Hang on.
Well, it's you, Frank. You're responsible, huh?
Problem is I don't actually, oh, there you are. Hang on.
Frank is our main man when it comes to the audio visual stuff.
Okay, I understand.
There you go. Try it now.
Okay, good. A lot more stuff came up. Okay, thanks. And let me just click on here. Okay, here's. Oh, right, you got to press share. You can't double click. Okay, and I will, let me, just trying to, okay, let me go to full screen here. And, okay, here we go. I'm not, how to turn me off, trying to get rid of my face here. Okay, because there was some way to do that. I'll just leave it on. So unfortunately, I just look at the PowerPoint slide.
We are not horrified. Don't worry about it. We'll focus on the slides.
Okay, thanks. So just a little bit about me. As Tricia said, yeah, I'm an amateur astronomer. I've been an amateur astronomer for a very long time, most of my life. In the past 25 years, I got back into it a lot more because during the middle part of my life, because of different jobs and things like that, I wasn't too actively involved in it. When I got back into it, I wanted to do something, so I contributed, at least I think I contributed by writing a few books. And one of them was on the Messier objects. But as I said tonight, I want to talk about, Charles Messier. As I say here, he was an observational astronomer. Can you hear me okay? Okay. In particular, he's very well known in the whole astronomical community for compiling that catalog of deep sky objects. And I'll sort of talk about that at the very beginning, and then get more into his history. This is what started me on Messier. This book is out of print, so I called it The Next Step: Finding and Viewing Messier Objects. I would say the one thing that I did that others hadn't done up to this time is I had photographed on film all of the Messier objects at the same scale and at the same amount of exposure. I think it was 20 minutes. So this goes back a good 15 years, and my memories are fading as I get older here. Tricia did mention, I'm not trying to sell my charts at all, but believe me, I just like people to decide for themselves. But yeah, if you see a yellow and a blue planisphere, those are my star charts. So that's another way I try to contribute. I enjoy very much working with beginners. One of the things I've done for the last 10 years, but no longer, is I basically managed what we call the Beginner's Corner at RTMC. And RTMC was the Riverside Telescope Making Conference. It really was an astronomy expo. And that's been going on it went on for 51 years. And so this year was the first year that we did not have it because basically the board decided to not continue with it for various reasons. But so again, I enjoy sort of getting people interested in astronomy, and I'm not the only one. I think almost everyone in this club, I bet you that those who have been around like to help beginners. It's fun, it's exciting. It's nice to see people excited about astronomy. So as I say here, how is Charles Messier remembered? And he's remembered, I think, as everyone in this club knows, even those who are beginning, they heard something about this Messier person. It's actually pronounced more like Messier. My French is not very good. Actually, my pronunciation for anything is not very good. So you have to sort of just live with what I with what I say. But it is a Messier. And he's very well known, not just in the amateur community, but also in the professional astronomical community, for compiling the very first catalog of deep sky objects. So the very first, he's the one who got there first. Now, before I sort of continue, there's the biggest misnomer, and I will show you pretty much at the end of this presentation why it is a misnomer. Now, when I say it's a misnomer, there is some truth to it. So the misnomer that goes around is that Messier created this catalog so people could avoid confusing the fuzzy objects in the sky, like nebulae and things like that, could avoid confusing them with comets, okay? So, so everyone thinks that this is a catalog was basically just to help people not confuse with whatever's in the catalog with a comet. You know, especially if you're a comet hunter, you don't want to make a mistake. You want to try to get it right at least the first time. So that is there is some truth to that, because he did say that at one time, but that's when he was pretty much young, pretty much getting started in astronomy, you know, cataloging, writing, and doing all sorts of things. But it's not true. So just quickly, he basically compiled this catalog of deep sky objects because there was no catalog like it at all in all of astronomy at that time. So he wanted to, so this was one of the ways, he contributed many ways in astronomy. This is one of the ways he wanted to contribute, is to catalog things that were not stars. He did not catalog them so that they would be confused with comets. So that's the thing that gets perpetuated, and it's completely wrong. And I'll read you what he wrote at the very end. Of course, I'll read it in French, so you'll have to, figure out what I say. No. Okay, just real quick, what are deep sky objects for those who are very much beginning? Deep sky objects are things we call star clusters, globular clusters, nebulae, planetary nebulae, supernova remnants, and galaxies. So basically anything that's not an individual star or a double star. Double stars are not also deep sky objects. And I just got some pictures here. The most famous star cluster is the Pleiades, so M45. These M numbers like this, M is just in honor of Messier, and 45 is the number that the Pleiades was in his catalog. So he was pretty consistent in keeping all these numbers pretty straight. So M, we see M as being Messier, the Messier catalog. 45 was the actual number in his catalog that the Pleiades got, and the numbers are just sort of random, just whenever he actually added an item to the catalog. Globular clusters, this is M12. We got nebulae, like the Orion Nebula, and nebulae like this are, as a lot of you know, this is where stars are born, okay? Our sun was born in a nebula like this, although of course our nebula has dissipated, and all the stars our sun was born with, they've sort of separated. So the Ring Nebula, this is, very famous one, looks like a little smoke ring, M57. And again, this is the 57th item in his catalog. We have supernova explosion. That's the Crab Nebula. This is the very first one. So when he did see the Crab Nebula for the first time, this is where he sort of got the idea, that, this can sort of look like a comet. At least he guessed, because he hadn't really seen too many comets up to that point. And so that's where he thought maybe it might be valuable to have a listing or something of objects that do look like comets. But he realized real quickly that there was a lot more going on here than that. Galaxies, of course, there's lots of galaxies. Here's M31. Okay, and as I say here, what's so special about Messier's catalog? It represents the biggest and brightest objects, the cream of the crop, the favorites, at least in the northern hemisphere here. Yeah, there's maybe a few others that could be added, but basically, since he was the first, he got to pick off the sort of the top of the list that he was developing. And also, it has at least one example of every type of deep sky object, which is sort of neat. And maybe more importantly, is all of the objects in its catalog can be seen with a 3-inch diameter telescope. So it's an amateur's delight. Now, I say a 3-inch diameter telescopes. There have been people that I think have done it with like 2 inches, maybe even less than that. But with a 3-inch diameter telescope in a reasonably dark location, you'll be able to see all of these objects. So you know, a very beginning amateur with not, you know, super giant telescopes and things like that can find all of Messier's objects, and it's a good way to get started. This is just an image of the catalog. It was published three catalogs were published. They each got bigger as he added more objects to them. Yes, it is all in French because he was a Frenchman. But what is sort of neat about a lot of scientific language and things like that, you can, you know, it's very similar to English. So you can see a lot of I mean, you can understand a lot of it. So it's the dates of the observations, you know, the right ascension droite, the right extension, the declination, and then he has these nice descriptions of them. So, you know, Messier did a very good job with cataloging. Actually, he did a very good job in almost everything that he engaged with when it came to astronomy. He was excellent at recording what he saw and reporting it. Yeah, and down at the bottom here, you know, his first catalog was to M45. That was actually available in 1771. The publication dates are in brackets. His second catalog it was actually available in 1780, and that went to M68. So there were 68 objects. And then the third and final catalog had 103 objects. Although they knew about he and his partner Michan knew about more, and that was published in 1781. And after that, he did not increase the catalog because there was a guy named Herschel who, and I don't know how he did this, and right outside London with the cloudy weather. At that time, Herschel got wind of this catalog because a lot of science was shared across countries and borders and things like that. And Herschel was just saying, you know, basically a couple thousand objects. So Messier could not compete with that for a lot of different reasons. Okay, a little bit about getting into the history of him. You know, we have Paris. I think you can see that. It's sort of in the upper part of France. In big letters, I have Baudon-Vallée, and I'm pretty sure that's pretty close to how it's pronounced. I asked a couple of French speakers. So, and then there's Senones. Baudon-Vallée, that is where Messier was born. So that's where he's from. And then he when he did get his job, which I'll get into, so he went from there to Paris. I have Senones here. Senones is where his mother was born. Baudon-Vallée is where his father was born. And later on in this talk, he has a brother that he was very close to, who actually ended up returning to Senones. So let's go here. This is basically the countryside just outside of Baudon-Vallée. In fact, you really sort of can't even see the city. This area of France is very beautiful. Lots of hills, rivers. There's a lake that's nearby. There's a low mountain range that's sort of nearby. But it's very, very green. You know, forests. You know, this would have been a great place for anyone, even today, to grow up and, you know, and to be a kid. I have this arrow here to St. Martin's Church. This is sort of a mainstay of Baudon-Vallée itself. And here's in essence, St. Martin's Church is in the middle of town. It's on a hill. And if you actually went to the back of it, it has its cemetery for the people who have passed away in the region. But then if you walk back farther, there's a big cemetery for people who fell in the Great War. And I think, as some of you, if you're young, the Great War actually means World War I, not World War II. Okay, this is This is where Charles Messier was born, and where he lived up until about age 21. So how did this all come about? There is a little bit of a misnomer that Messier came from a poor family. I've seen that roaming around. It's not true. He came from he was not an aristocrat. But he came from a family that had pretty high standing within the community and the area because his father was basically mayor. That's about the equivalent I can think of. He was basically mayor of not only this city but of the surrounding area. And as mayor, some of his responsibilities was tax collecting. Some of it was acting as a judge for misdemeanors. And he even had I guess maybe on occasion for tax purposes or whatever, confiscate property and things like that. So his dad was basically a prominent person of the community. So his parents had, like many people back then, they had a lot of children, but not all of them survived. They had 12 children. Only six survived. So Messier had 3 older brothers, and he had 1 younger brother and a sister. And one of the oldest brother, Hyacinth, and Hyacinth played a very prominent role in actually Messier's life and the direction that he took in becoming an astronomer. But Hyacinth was 13 years older. Unfortunately, Messier's dad died when Messier was 11 years old. But prior to that, Hyacinth, the oldest brother, was actually sent. There's a relatively large town called Nancy, not too far away, at least by car. It's not too far away, maybe an hour at the very most. But his dad, prior to his death, had sent him to Nancy to be trained at what was then called a procurator, and a procurator in essence. You could basically call him like a government administrator. So he probably learned about finances, how to do stuff, in the way that was done with government books and things of that nature. So again, Messier's father passed away when he was 11. Messier and Hyacinth ended up becoming very close. One of the main reasons for that is Hyacinth took Charles took Messier under his wings and trained him in the best fashion that he could. So even though Charles never got any formal training, with a real a procurator or someone else, in essence, he got the same, learned the same type of skills from his brother. So, and that started at age 12, all the way up to age 21. Now, even though I said his dad was a mayor, and that sort of makes it sort of sound like the way the area was run was typical, to the way we think of mayors and stuff today. No, this area was under the control of what was called at that time was the princesses of Salm. There was a king of France at that time. So his father and Hyacinth, basically worked under the princesses of Salm. But right around when Messier, basically exactly when Messier was 21, the whole area that they were in. So let me go back. So this whole area, here we have Nancy, where I told you Hyacinth did his training. This whole greater area was pretty much under the domain of the princesses of Salm. There were negotiations with the king of the king of France, with the princesses of Salms and some of the higher ups, whatever they were called in Germany. So this land was being sort of redistributed, reappropriated, and some of it, and I don't know which part. Some of this part became Germany's property, and what happened is that the princesses of Salm had to, I believe, pull in, and their seat of administration was at Baden-Valais, and that then became Sinon's, then became the seat of administration for this area. And when I say that became the seat of administration, is Hyacinth. Hyacinth was, let me go back here. Hyacinth was able to secure a position for himself, but because of the reorganization, jobs were scarce. They were basically tightening the princesses were tightening their belts. They were doing everything with less people. This sounds exactly like what happens today. So, and he wasn't able to secure a position for his brother Charles. So he had to do some other things to try to find him employment, because I guess he felt some brotherly responsibility. So what Hyacinth did is Hyacinth knew the individuals that were doing a lot of the negotiations, and so there was one, and that is the negotiation with the redistribution of all the land around Baden-Valais and all that. So those negotiations were going on basically between the King of France and the princesses of Salm, and whoever the higher ups, the royalty, like in Germany and all that. So there was a person that was going back and forth with a lot of messaging, and Hyacinth knew this person real well. He was a friend of the family. So since Hyacinth knew that he could not get Messier Charles a job, in the new administration, he asked his friend that was going back to do the negotiations to see if he could find something for Charles in Paris. So he did. He found two possibilities. One was basically working for a procurator in Paris, and the other was working for an astronomer. So, and the sort of I say irony of this is, today we sort of, we're used to choosing our own path. Well, for some reason, Messier wasn't able to choose his own path. Hyacinth, with a friend, Hyacinth talked over these jobs, these two possibilities with a good friend, and they decided, for whatever reason, that the position with the astronomer would be a better job for Charles Messier than the other one. And let me just read. I have a little thing from my book, and it says Charles had little say in this. That is, little say in which position. He writes in his diary, and this is something that Charles did. Charles, for many years, wrote had a diary and wrote pretty extensively in it. And not a lot of it, most of it has been lost. So, but some of the early stuff is still around. So he writes in his diary, they decided together that I should accept the position with the astronomer. Having decided on this, all I thought of was my departure. 8 days went by, and the 9th, which was a Thursday, 23rd September, 1751, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I left Baden-Valais. So Messier left, he probably was not a science nerd. We don't really know what interest he had growing up, but he probably had a penchant or an interest in nature, because living in a small town and with the countryside. So he left to Paris. And to assume a position, basically a clerk type position with an astronomer. This astronomer's name was Joseph Delisle. Joseph Delisle was an aristocrat, and as an aristocrat, that sort of he had extra I'm trying to word it. He had extra oomph to do things in his life. That's not the word oomph. We should delete that, and I'll replace it with the correct word later. But Delisle was looking for an assistant, At the time that he was looking for an assistant, he was a professor at the Royal Academy of France, and he in that position he was actually the basically the department head of astronomy, and you can include mathematics with that. So he taught astronomy and mathematics at the Royal Academy. Prior, a little bit about DeLille is that his father, and he had an older brother. Both of them had positions within the royal. Both of them had royal positions. That's the best way to say it. So DeLille, for some reason, never got a royal position, but because of all the connections, he was able to do well. And one of the things that he did, he actually spent 21 years in Russia, and he was one of the individuals that helped get built the St. Petersburg Observatory. And he had a penchant, and this ended up helping him a little bit later on. He had a penchant to collect astronomical and geographical manuscripts and books. Okay, so so while he was in Russia, he basically had a pretty large collection. The number I don't think anyone knows exactly, and that was going to help him with some stuff that I'll tell you when we get there. Just I don't think my arrow shows here, but on this picture, you have the red car, and then there's that gray car. Right above the gray car, you can sort of see above the windows, but you have the gray car, there's the two windows, there is a plaque. And that's a plaque to commemorate Charles Messier, where he was born. It says astronomer of the Navy, member of the Bureau of Longitudes. It's on the left. On the right, it says member of the Academy of Sciences, plus the Institute, and all of the academies basically of Europe. And at the bottom, it just says, he was born in this house. And then he died at basically at the Hotel Cluny Observatory in Paris, which I'll show you some pictures of that. So that's the plaque. And when in Paris, and this might be hard to see, but I'll point some things out, and I have a little bit of a close up of this area. But many of the places that Charles resided in are attended. Most of those buildings are still around, not all of them. So in this map right here, just to point out a few things. In fact, let me go right here on the bigger one. Right. Can you actually see my arrow? I'm guessing you can't see my arrow. Is that true? Like when I'm circling?
You can see it actually.
Okay, good. Okay, it's not real big, but right here, this is Pont Neuf, which means new bridge. Of course, it's been replaced probably a couple of times since then. But in one of Messier's journals, again, which he wrote a lot, especially I think after he got to London. But he used to come here to this bridge often to watch fireworks, something that they did have back then. There's a number 7 right here. That is the Louvre, and that's where a lot of the Academy of Sciences meetings took place. The Academy of Sciences was the formal scientific organization in France, and members of it, mostly aristocrat, but not totally. Members of it, they span the whole spectrum of all the different sciences. They would report on what they're doing, what they discovered, at their probably monthly meetings. Here, right here, unfortunately, is Notre Dame, which as we all know, caught fire. I think a few years ago, but it's very close to where Messier, in essence, lived. Here, in this red and this blue. Okay, the blue is the Royal College of France. That's where DeLille, his boss, again, who's basically a professor and aristocrat. This is where he was teaching and living. And so when Messier reported to Paris, that's where he also lived somewhere on those grounds, maybe within who knows, the same housing unit that not Messier, but that Delisle, his boss and wife, lived on. In red right here, we'll be getting to this. This is, now it's pretty much called Hotel Cluny. For the most part, it was called Hotel Cluny back then. It looks like a small miniature castle. That's where an observatory was put on top of there by his boss, Delisle, and Messier ended up making a lot of his measurements, not so much observations, but a lot of his measurements from on top of that tower. And I'll be showing you some pictures there. Here is the Luxembourg Palace, which Delisle, his boss, had a telescope on at one time. In fact, when he got back from Russia, he had his first telescope here on top of pretty much like a tower type thing. And then he moved it for convenience. He moved it to the hotel because it's really right next to where he was teaching. This little green thing, this is the church where Messier got married. And this yellow thing down here, this is the Paris Observatory. And the Paris Observatory now, obviously, it's really more historical. It contains more historical stuff. It's not like they really use it anymore. It's almost everything that I have talked about can be walked to within 30 minutes. Almost if you were at the hotel here or at the college, everything was probably within about a 20-minute walk. Because when I walked from the hotel to the Paris Observatory, it was a nice 20-minute stroll. So everything was pretty close by. This is just a few pictures, of course, not very far away. In fact, I timed it, but I don't remember. It was probably like 10, 11, 12 minutes. Maybe it was just 7 minutes to walk to Notre Dame, which of course, existed when it was up when Messier was there. Just a front view of it. Yeah, it's a beautiful structure. Okay, this is the point of Pont Neuf. Now, this did not exist when Messier was there, but I was probably standing very close to where Messier stood, watching fireworks and who knows, maybe looking at boats and things go by. So they sort of made it into a point, and Pont doesn't mean point. Pont means bridge. Neuf means new. Neuf can mean 9, but it's in this case, because it's an adjective. Yeah, it's an adjective. It means new. But yeah, it's a very nice park now. If you go to Paris, I would recommend walking across the bridge and then walking down the stairs and just taking some time to chill out a little bit in this park. Okay, this is the College of France. Now this has been rebuilt since his boss worked there, and again Messier himself stayed, and I'm guessing he lived somewhere in there. No one lives there anymore. They don't have those type of. It's not that type of structure. It's just plainly a school, and again this is really right next to where Messier ended up, at least pretty much as an adult, living and working in that Hotel Cluny, which we'll get to shortly. This is a list showing Delisle, and here it is right now, Joseph Delisle, 1718, as to when he became a professor. At the time that this was, that they chiseled into this, the Dur and the Lille was separate. And it was like, I had heard that after the revolution, they sort of blended these things together for, I guess, I don't know, for one reason or another, maybe to show that they weren't as aristocratic as they might have been. A story with this, I could not get into the College of France. It's now just the College of France. You had to have, basically you had to have an invite, but you can walk around it. And I saw this list, and I wasn't too sure. I saw this list in a courtyard, and I could see it because they had a metal type, a very pretty nice metal type fence. But also in the metal type fence was a little door that a delivery man was going in and out. So, so I just followed the delivery man in, and this was very early in the morning. I don't know, he was delivering milk or something, and I immediately went over to the to the list because this is on the wall, and I just started looking for names and actually taking pictures. And so I was lucky enough to capture his name here. Now, getting out was a little bit more complicated than going in, but I was able to do it. That's why I'm here to. So I can give the talk. So I made it out. Okay, right across from Hotel Cluny, which I'm going to be talking about shortly. And Hotel Cluny looks like a castle. That's pretty much where he worked and lived, especially as I'll say as sort of as an adult. But right across from it is the Sorbonne. And I think if you're young, the Sorbonne is like a very prestigious. I'm pretty sure it's a private school in Paris, and so it was not there when Messier was there, and but obviously it is there now, and it's narrow like on end, but it takes up like a whole city block. It just keeps on going, and there's an observatory dome about halfway on it, halfway on it, said halfway down on it. Okay, this is Hotel Cluny. Let's get back to a little bit more of Messier's history. So when he arrived at to the College of France, working under his boss Delisle as a clerk, he didn't really do anything directly astronomy. Not initially. He worked on maps. One of the reasons why Delisle was probably interested in him. Because the individual that was trying to sell, Hyacinth's friend that was trying to sell Messier to him. I mean, Messier had at that time good handwriting. He was very industrious. He was a hard worker. He had some ability to draw. So all those plus many other assets. I guess he looked good. He looked good on paper. So his first job, probably for the first couple of years, was literally not by himself, but was working with one or two others, drawing some maps and things of that nature. So it's reported that like the very first thing he made, very first project he engaged in was like a map of the Wall of China, and then there was some stuff of Paris that he did. But Delisle himself, his boss, probably did not have a lot of interface with him. Delisle had an assistant that had been with him for many years, and his name, I think it was Labor, so it's something like Labor. And Labor was probably the one who was interfacing with Messier on a day-to-day basis with instructions and telling him what to do and things of that nature. But apparently things went real well. Messier was a good worker. He seemed to be bright on the uptake, and so it's sort of obvious reading in between the lines that he was probably given more and more responsibilities. And then in 1753 was pretty much a turning point in his life, because he helped out at Hotel Cluny, and I'll be getting into the hotel more. He helped out at Hotel Cluny. There was a big event. It was the transit of Mercury, and the astronomers and other people were invited. There were telescopes, aplenty set here and there. And this is something that Delisle, his boss, had organized. And Delisle saw Messier in action, helping out others, taking notes, the interest he's shown, probably the respect he was also showing others. And so at that point, Delisle encouraged him to basically study astronomy and to develop his skills, his observational skills. Now, you might think when he said to study astronomy that he would be able to attend classes at the Royal Academy of France. No, no. Messier was not an aristocrat. I'm guessing only aristocrats and maybe nobles. Nobles would basically be rich people, people who did real well with businesses. Might had the honor to attend the Royal Academy of France, and so Messier had to attend more of a public college, which was maybe about 10 minutes a walk from the hotel right here, and So let's take a look at Hotel Cluny a little bit. Right now, this is basically a medieval museum. So that's what it is right now. And originally it was built by abbots from this town of Cluny, which is further south of France. And their idea is they wanted to start an educational institute, a school. And I'm guessing the school probably would not just be religious, but would encompass a lot of the academic fields that were known at that time. Why they built it like a castle is it's hard to say, but it is pretty. Maybe they needed the defense back then, but I don't think so. Okay, here, this wall we see in front is often called the curtain wall. Inside there is it's basically like a little mall area, and from here you can get to the various parts of the hotel itself. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the abbots tried to start up an educational institute, but it failed. So it fell in disuse, and I guess some Parisians picked it up, and they pretty much were renting it out, not so much as a hotel, although I guess they would take overnighters, but pretty much renting out a couple of the floors as apartments. So it was really more of a small apartment type complex than it was a hotel where people are going in and out on a daily basis. So this is the courtyard, and you can see this was built in the 1500s. So it's absolutely beautiful, the detail of the stonework. And just a few pictures here. This is right on the right side. This is the tower. Of course, the entrance is down here, and it was on top of the tower that actually DeLille built the observatory. DeLille actually built the observatory here, and back then, when someone built an observatory, it came out of their own funds. And next to the tower is a turret. This is the turret right here, and that allows you, of course, entrance to the top of the tower. And I got a few pictures just to show you that. Here's a slightly better picture of the right side. You can see you can see the beautiful work above the entrance to the tower. And in fact, here's a better picture on the right of the entrance to the tower, and just another one on the left of it. So this is a picture. This has been around a long time. Someone, and I think it was in Sky and Telescope, and I kept the picture, but I don't know where it is. And it's been many years since I've actually given this talk. But we're pretty sure Messier drew this. That's what everyone says. We don't know it's for sure. So the odd thing about this drawing is, it looks like this courtyard, this mall area. It looks like it's gigantic. Well, I guess if you drew it in this perspective, it would look gigantic. But it hasn't changed in shape or anything like that. And what I was showing you is actually what it was then and what it is now. But at least this picture does give you an idea of what the observatory on the top looks like. And you can sort of see a crisscross pattern here. And the crisscross pattern apparently, when I say apparently, most likely were little, basically just little windows, little slats that he can open and close to expose an area of the sky that he was observing. Obviously, that would be a real pain to have to keep, because it doesn't rotate, to have to keep on opening and closing these things. And just as a note, Messier did not do most of his actual observing, his general observing from here. He used the tower to record the declination and right excension. So basically that's where he collected the detailed information on where that object was in the sky. Okay, this is, there's 3 pictures here, but this is the stairwell. I was able to get into the stairwell because I did contact the administration of Hotel Coney, and they basically take the whole top floor. That's the administration. But and at the top of that tower is this nice column that sort of holds it up. So literally on top of this circle thing here, right above that would have been the outside of the top of the tower. And this door right here, this goes into the turret. One thing I just want you to notice, this was amazing. Now, if you look closely, you know, we have this glass, this leaded glass, and you notice that there's stone just right beyond that glass. Now, at first glance, I remember looking at this, I said, it looks like they just blocked it all in. No, that stone is part of an extremely tight spiral staircase that will take you to the top of the tower. If you have a few extra pounds, you're not getting up through this door. Believe me, it's very, very tight. Okay, just inside, this is what there's actually 3 floors. And when Messier, and I'll be talking about this, when he became an astronomer of the Navy, he got enough money to rent out one of the floors. This is one side of it. You can see a lot of the things in here. These are medieval artifacts because it's now a museum. So this is one side, and and this is like the other side, which had a fireplace. So the apartments themselves were actually pretty substantial. So, okay, let me go on and talk a little bit more about how Messier sort of got into this comet stuff. So one of the things that was going to happen right around the it did happen. Let's say several years after he arrived. So he did develop his observational skills. He was studying in astronomy. There's no doubt that DeLille was happy with his progress and saw him as an asset. So in 1758, it was people were expecting the return of Comet Halley, you know, and because Halley had sort of predicted that there's this comet that it looks like had repeated itself coming back in the past, and so he predicted right around 1785 this comet should reappear. And in the astronomical community, this was going to be a big event, and so DeLille had calculated where he thought it would appear, and Messier and he basically let Messier search for the object. So the aristocrat made his clerk do all the work. So night after night, Messier was out there looking for the comet, and this is where he first encountered a fuzzy object. In fact, I think it was M32. That an M32 is that little satellite of M31. So you know, it could be confused with a comet, but as we know, it wasn't. And shortly thereafter, this is all within a year's time, he did find a comet in Taurus, and after that he found M1. And then in January in 1759, again, all within basically a year, he did he found Comet Halley. Again, that was in January. But there was a little bit of a problem. DeLille was not announcing any of these discoveries, none at all. In fact, when DeLille was pretty sure that Messier had found Halley's comet, had located it, he didn't even make that announcement in January. He waited until April. And so this went on for a few years where Messier would discover comets. There were a lot of comets back there. We're just at a ice belt. Yes?
Now I've lost my screener thing. Did I throw it down?
Can you hear me? Did someone lose? Or someone talking to someone else? Okay, but so there was some tension between Messier and DeLille, because DeLille was not announcing the discoveries. And most likely this tension existed because Messier was, in essence, literally himself making all these discoveries. And my gut reaction is, you sort of read between the lines, is that DeLille, as an aristocrat, had a difficult time, saying that his clerk basically was really an astronomer and was surpassing, what he himself was. And so it took until 1760 for DeLille to start acknowledging Messier's comet discoveries. So and even before 1760, when DeLille did acknowledge that Messier, was discovering comets and things like that. Slightly before that, Messier was actually writing articles for basically for the scientific journals, really the one French scientific journal that existed back then. Here's a couple of telescopes. The one on the right is a Gregorian telescope. It's probably something like this, the one on the right that was on top of the tower, top of Messier's tower, because this had a telescope like this, had right extension and declination scales on it. So Messier, could very much mark the coordinates and things of that nature. But for the most part, he used small telescopes like this, right around 3 inches refractors, and he could. I'm pretty sure he did not observe from Hotel Cluny, but he move it about the area to find a good dark location. And this is what he used, like this, to discover the comets and all of his objects that he added to the catalog. And I'm starting to run along here. So this is, I mentioned already about the comets and about Halley's, how he rediscovered it. And DeLille ended up becoming astronomer of the Navy. He wasn't a professor all the time. In fact, after about 2 or 3 years after Messier had come aboard, became his work. And again, DeLille was really the department head of astronomy and probably mathematics a little bit too. 3 or 4 years after Messier came on board, DeLille became astronomer of the Navy. There's no doubt that something was happening financially with the school and with his position. And so he worked a deal out with the Navy, and yes, he was the French Navy at that time, to become the astronomer of the Navy. One of the things he did is he used all those manuscripts and books on astronomy and geography. He used that partially as a bargaining chip to obtain, the position of astronomer in the Navy. And of course, he would have been paid for this. But after DeLille died, a few years after that, Messier became astronomer of the Navy. It does not look like DeLille, basically advocated for him in any way to get that title. I think it was just Messier had become, by that time, sort of a prominent observational astronomer because of his of all of his comet discoveries and all of the other work that he was doing in astronomy. So I have here just a little bit. Messier basically didn't date a lot, but in 1770 he marries Marie Vermanchon at age 37. He courted for 15 years. She had to have the patience of a saint. But and the reason why he probably courted all this time is because I don't think he could support his wife and on a clerk salary. So once he became, he got married in 1770, I think he knew he was going to become astronomer of the Navy, and that gave him enough money to definitely move into Hotel Cluny. But the sad thing about this story, and this is real life stuff, is just a couple years after they married, Messier's wife and son died all within about 10 days. His wife died first, and his son died several days after that. And as far as we know, he never remarried. He probably never dated. A few years after his wife and son passed away, he met someone called Meshan. Meshan became his best friend, and Meshan was a sort of a lower aristocrat. In other words, that means there wasn't a lot of money in his aristocratic family. He did attend the Royal College of France, but he had to drop out because of finances. But Meshan also got a job with the Navy, and that's probably a little bit of where they met and became sort of best friends. So this is in Senones. This is Hyacinth's, his brother's house. I was fortunate enough to get a little bit of a tour of it. So his brother became, in essence, a tax collector, and this house, I think, became a little bit famous because of Hyacinth's association with his brother Messier. And this is what the front of the house was. I was looking in the back. There's a place in the back where you can park their cars. It's gated. And I just wanted to see what the back of the house looked like. And so this older gentleman came out because he was wondering, what is this, a criminal? No, he's wondering who in the hell I was. What was I doing? Sort of staring into this parking lot. So I told him I was writing the book on Messier, and it was just nice. He invited me in, and we had a nice conversation, and he showed me around the house and all that. So it was nice. I mentioned a little bit about the catalogs, and again, the main reason why his catalog, why he discontinued really adding entries is because of William Herschel. So in his William Herschel got a copy of the final catalog, and that is definitely was the impetus for William Herschel to create his own catalog. Except he did it, by listing thousands of objects, not just 100. And this is what I want to read. This is from the first catalog of Messier, and there's of course a preface here. And I'll just read the English. You can follow along in the French if you want. Several astronomers have searched for nebulous stars, including Hevelius, Huygens, Durham, Halley, Chasseau, Father de la Caille, and finally Mr. Le Gentil. And I know I probably massacred most of those words. Other astronomers have discovered some by chance, either while working on establishing the location of stars for catalog purposes or while observing comets. Several of these astronomers only indicated the constellations where they were located without giving their exact position or a detailed description. Okay, so this is the important part. I started this book in 1764 by observing those which were already known, as well as searching others, and he's talking about deep sky objects, as searching others that had eluded astronomers since the telescope was invented. And of course, that was in 1609. This long and tedious work allows me today to submit to the Academy a more comprehensive, more precise, and more detailed catalog of nebular stars, a reference work that may have been lacking in the field of astronomy. So he realized that as far as he knew, there was no catalog of deep sky objects. Of course, he didn't call them that, of let's say nebular type stars. That as far as he knew, there wasn't one. And so in his observations of the night sky, sometimes searching for comets, not all the time, he compiled the catalog. So that's how it got its start. And Messier, I just want to hit home this point. During his time that he was observing, creating this catalog and doing other things, he was the leading observational astronomer in Europe. In fact, he was probably the leading observational astronomer in the world by far. So he became a member of 17 science academies throughout Europe. They all accepted him. A lot of it was because of his discovery of comets, but also he had written a lot of publications on all sorts of astronomical things. Like I said here, had over 100 astronomical observations published in various scientific circulars covering the gamut of astronomy. Only 30% were related to comets. He did there's no doubt he had a passion for hunting for comets. That was a passion. but he knew that astronomy was a heck of a lot more than just comets. And so he was absolutely an observational astronomer of everything in astronomy across the board that was known at that time. Here's some, there's some reports from the Academy of Sciences. These are very big books. In fact, they're like 3 inches thick. There's just volumes of them. They're probably like about maybe 15, 16, 17 inches tall and maybe 12 or so inches wide. They have a lot of fold-outs. And so Messier wrote a lot of articles for the Memoirs de l'Académie des Sciences, or the reports of the Academy of Sciences. And here's one looking at Saturn. You know, this is a lot more than comets. So here, this is a chart that he drew that was in the Memoirs de l'Académie des Sciences. Here he is showing, I guess, the path of either one or a couple of comets. But again, only 30% of what he wrote about that got published had to deal with comets. Some official pictures of Messier. I didn't talk about Messiaen a lot. That was a good friend of his that became a good friend that helped out with the Messier catalog starting right around 60s, 65, that number. Messier found about 20 comets. Messier got a Messiaen hooked, I think, on looking for comets. I think Messiaen found about 8 comets like that, but they were best friends. Messiaen died way before Messier from yellow fever, from surveying, because he did a lot of surveying for the Navy. This is what the Paris Observatory looks like now. You know, the dome's not that great looking. The inside's a lot nicer. A lot of historical stuff on the inside, including a beautiful, when I say beautiful, a library of lots of astronomical and historical stuff, and a lot of the pictures of people who were in charge of the observatory and things of that nature. So lastly, there are signs in Paris. Messier got this little square sign, Rue Messier. I always laugh at this point. Messier's sign was for a very short street that literally there's a prison. There's a prison on one side of it, I guess regular houses on the other. So his sign is right next to his road is right next to a prison. Messiaen, because he was an aristocrat and had discovered some comets and things like that, he has a nicer sign, and his sign is closer to the Paris Observatory, where Messier's is a little bit further along. Okay, that's sort of a quick thing. I know I've gone over. Sorry about that. So do you want to open it up to questions?
Yeah, that's a great idea. If anybody has any questions. I think it's fascinating to hear, you know, these people that we revere, they were real people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And a lot of them started out as really amateur astronomers.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, just to comment on that, one of the things that I see in lots of science books, math books, when they talk about history of the people, they make it sterile. You know, it's like, you know, so it sounds like all they did was their occupation, and they really didn't have any social life of any sort. And I sort of made this a little bit sterile too. You know, I mean, Messier was a person. You know, he had his personality. He was very much devoted to to astronomy, to his work. You know, that's what he did the most of the time. So yeah, and in some ways maybe he was a little bit more sterile, but you know, he was, yes, he had a life just like everyone else, and all the ups and downs that come with it.
So Eric asks, when working towards your Messier list, did Messier have to have his work verified, and by whom? Oh, I meant to say, when working on your Messier list, your findings need to be verified. Did someone verify? Oh, so did like Messier have like peer review? Did somebody check up on him to make sure there was a blob where he said there was a blob, and that sort of thing? I guess that's what Eric's asking.
Yeah, that's sort of a good question. Not directly, but let me get there. Well, you know, he was the first.
Exactly, Richard.
Yeah, he was the first one. He was the first one. He was an established astronomer. So, and back then when because science was very new in the 1700s, you know, science basically got started in the early 1600s, right around Galileo's time. So this was astronomy in the 1700s. Almost everything was brand new. Some of it was pushed over from the 1600s. So I don't think anyone directly at his time, did verify his work. But as even Messier, remember when I read that blurb, he had short lists that his boss, I'm pretty sure DeLille, had accumulated, short lists from other astronomers that had some nebulae and stuff like that. Messier himself verified all those, and if they were there, he included them in his. If they existed, he included them in his catalog. And some of the ones that people said that they on these lists here and there from other astronomers, some of them he couldn't verify. So because he was sort of the first one, and I think he was respected, no one was going to really hold his feet to the fire. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? It's a pretty thorough review. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ken. I appreciate your time. And you answered my big question, which was, surely he didn't think these things would be mistaken as comets. So that was great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. No, thank you.
All right. Okay. So, okay, well then let's get on with our mini programs now that the entree's out of the way. Our astrophotos is up with Derek. If Derek is available.
Yes, I always just
get
kind
your
of
stuff together.
Kind of turn myself all down to kind of help with bandwidth and whatnot.
Sure.
I'm actually starting this, running this program. All right, so let me get my screen here. All right, so if you just for those that are new to this, every month we show a series of astrophotos taken by our members. So if you happen to see your photo in this, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and explain a little detail of the image you've taken and a little interesting maybe factoid of something that you might have caught your eye in your photo. We don't want it just to be technical. We want something that made you drawn to this image or what made you want to take this picture. So anyway, so we're going to start off here. I believe the first photo is actually mine because I wasn't able to attend last month's meeting because I was out. Taking a little time away before our start of our semester, and I didn't get a chance to share some of my Neowise photos. So this is my one of my Comet Neowise images I took on a nice clear night. Very rare, of course, as you know, in the summertime here in Florida, to have a really clear night. So I had the opportunity to find a dark sky local that wasn't terribly too far. So I actually discovered a new location in an area known as Farrell's Lake, which is in the Ocala National Forest. And we had a really superb night. And this is my image of Neowise. This is with a 200 millimeter lens at f4. And I took this using a Canon 5D camera, and also used a Astro Track, which is a portable tracking mount that allows me to do long exposures. So each of these were, I think I did about 20 1.5 minute exposures, and using a program called Pix Insight, I was able to do two stacks, one stacking on the comet and the other one on the stars, and blending the two together to get the final image. So I really wanted to capture a really nice image that I can utilize for my education as a planetarium director, but also as a science educator. I wanted to get a really nice close image of this. So you got that beautiful ion tail, and I really wanted to get the composition of the comet itself as it was flying through space. The next image is a zoomed out shot I took at Farrell's Lake. Not obviously it is a lake, so it was located in just the right spot for the comet to be viewed from the lake. And as you can see, I got a really nice reflection of the comet over Farrell's Lake. Again, this is in the heart of the Ocala National Forest. Just to get there, it takes a good hour just to get through all the really rocky road, and it's pretty remote. So it's kind of nice to go somewhere where there's very little light pollution, and you can really capture the moment. So this is that image here. This was taken with a 50mm lens at f2, and this is only a 30-second exposure. So unfortunately, we were getting close to the end, and I really wanted to capture that moment and didn't really want to do too much guiding. I wanted to just capture just a single moment in time. So no tracking on this, just a single exposure image here. Next one, I believe it comes from Andy. Andy, are you on here tonight? Okay, here is his image of Neowise taken during a campsite. I believe this was at Kissimmee Prairie Preserve, I believe, of comet Neowise. So not too much information beyond this. It's just a really nice capture of Neowise. And this is an image that he took too. Actually, I took an image similar to this, but I figured since I showed two of my images, I'll show two of his. This is an image of Comet Neowise and one of the Starlink constellation trains. And by stacking multiple images together and not doing what's called rejection, basically you keep everything that's in the image, you can actually show the movement of these satellites. And as you can see here, Starlink has made an appearance as Comet Neowise was in the image there. So I thought that was a pretty cool image. Again, not much detail as far as how he took this image, but again, you can see here, you can see those various satellite trains there. So, okay, I believe this image is, I think Len is still here. Len, this is your image of the moon. Can you talk a little bit about this, please?
Yes, I was practicing up for doing the International Observe the Moon Night and running into difficulties, but I did manage to get one picture actually of the moon. I've got the full quarter in another image, and then this is a crop from that full quarter moon. And this was to point out the Valles Alps Valley on the moon.
Yeah, it looks like it's really great. Can you talk a little bit about what that Valles Alps is?
That is a valley running through the mountains out into the Mara. You can just barely make it out there at the bottom of that pointer. Dark line in there. Right
here. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. That's located near the Sea of Crises, right? Sea of Crisis, I believe, is right here.
Right.
So excellent. Fantastic image. And Richard did point out in the comments section that this was one of the lunar challenges of the month. So congratulations, Len, for completing that challenge with your image here. And I believe the next image is your image as well. This is a nice
quarter moon. This is the quarter moon image that I captured, and the other preceding image was cropped out from the top area of this image.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's making sense now. That's really nice resolution to be able to capture that and get that nice image through here as well. That's a great work, Len. Excellent. Do you know what camera and lens setup you were using?
Yes, I was using the ASI 071 color camera. Haven't had an awful lot of experience with it just yet, but I'm working on it. This is one of the pro models with cooling, so it was running at 10 below 0 centigrade.
Oh, wow.
Which reduces noise very nicely.
Fantastic. Excellent. All right, moving on. I believe this is your image of Jupiter.
Yes, that's my image of Jupiter. That was taken just a few nights ago. Actually, this was a somewhat of a reprocess of one of the images that I had also already posted on Facebook. This was processed, all of the post-processing here was done in PixInsight.
Excellent. Excellent. I get great detail on that. And for those that are interested in doing planetary getting your hands onto doing planetary imaging, there's going to be an upcoming workshop on this, and I guess we can talk about that a little bit later on in the meeting here about how you can get those details for the intro to planetary imaging. I believe Frank Kane will be presenting it. And speaking of Frank Kane, Frank, there you go.
Woohoo. Yeah, speaking of Jupiter, so probably the same night that Len was out, I took a shot at Jupiter as well. And I went back and compared it to the same shot that I took back in May. And what's interesting is the Great Red Spot. It's not looking so hot, yeah? So back in May, it kind of like healed up from its shrinking and kind of tearing apart that was happening last year. But it looks like it's getting back into a state of chaos there, which I find interesting. It's also interesting that I haven't really seen anyone talking about this. I don't know if Bill Costring's on the meeting tonight. He's a little bit more plugged into that scene than I am, but it's always cool when you take a picture and you feel like you have a little bit of a moment of discovery, you know? So we'll see what happens to the Great Red Spot. That was taken through the Celestron 11-inch Edge HD with a ASI 224MC camera, 180 seconds, 60 frames per second, processed with Registax and auto stackered.
Fantastic. Now, Frank, while you're on, do you want to make a little plug about your planetary imaging workshop coming up?
Yeah, I imagine we'll have some more details going out through email and whatnot soon, but middle of October sometime, I forget the exact date, but I think it coincides with the Mars opposition. We'll be doing a little workshop online through Zoom of how I go about capturing and processing these images myself, maybe show you a few tricks you didn't know before. And if you're new to planetary imaging, it's a good way to get started because there's a whole lot of mythology and tribal knowledge behind this field of imaging. So I'll share what I know.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Len. All right. Thank you, Len and Frank. Sorry. It's been a long day for me. All right. So, all right. There you go. That's all I have for this month. Of course, at every, of course, we haven't had much in terms of observing as of late. So hopefully when we get back to the observing season starting hopefully in October, we'll be able to see more and more images in the future. So
yeah, and as observing chair, Derek, I'm going to have to hold you to fire. You need to do something about this weather we've been having.
We've had some great clear weather.
I believe that's, yeah. So Derek, I have a question for you. Are you going to cover the sketches? We should have discussed this before the meeting, but should we cover sketching with the astrophotos, or do you want to include that with your observing report? And I have the sketch if you want me to throw it up real quick.
Yeah, actually that would be great. Yeah, because I'm not gonna lie, it skipped my mind. So let me just get back on the Zoom here. So one of the observing challenges that we were putting together for last month is M27 and N57. So these are really nice images taken by Bill Graun,
not taken.
Yes, Graun. Yes, again,
Freudian slip there.
Yes, yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah, no, we were filming all day today, so my brain's a little mushy right now. Bill Castro put together these really nice sketches of three objects. We have the dumbbell on the top left, we have the Ring Nebula on the bottom left, and we have the Andromeda Galaxy and M32 on the right. So a great field of view there, and looks pretty good based on what I would visually see through a fairly modest telescope. So Bill Castro does a really great job with these illustrations. And he's pretty much become the observer warrior, or in this case, the observer master, because he pretty much completed most of the observing challenges that we have put together in the last couple of times we've done these meetings. So congratulations, Bill, for completing the observing challenge and providing these really wonderful sketches that you have here. So.
Yeah, so I wonder, can we do a impromptu poll? I am curious how many people would be interested in having a guest speaker to talk about sketching. There's several sketching artists that I follow on Twitter, and they post videos of their sketching. And I've in my travels, I've met some people at star parties that do sketching, and I'm like, I'm a really terrible sketcher, but I'm interested in it, and I don't want to force it on everybody else. I've just pulled up the poll, and it's asking about, here we go. I think Derek is on the job.
Yeah, I'm working on it. If you want to keep talking.
All right, so well, I won't take any more time on it, but we're going to have a poll, and I'd like to know if there's more than like 3 people who'd be interested in having a presentation on how to do sketching at the telescope. So the next thing on our agenda is me. Let's see. I'm going to talk about the Astronomy League first. So let me get my screen share going. So many places to click. I was just sharing a second ago. I should have left it up. And every month we do an Astronomy League Certificate of the Month. And I thought I'd shake it up a little bit this month in the hopes that we might have some visitors. And I want to talk more about what the Astronomy League is and what our benefits are. You, as a paid Central Florida Astronomical Society member, are also a member of the Astronomical League. Every year we send in a membership list and a check to the Astronomical League, and so you are officially a member. Well, what do you get for being a member of the Astronomical League? Well, you get a magazine, a quarterly magazine called The Reflector. It has lots of news and updates on what's going on. You know, it's like a light version of Sky and Telescope and astronomy, the sort of thing you would expect. But it does have a lot of news from other astronomy clubs around the league, so to speak, noteworthy things that are going on elsewhere. There are also observing articles, things like how would you sketch? Although I haven't seen one of those in a while, but they have, how to observe globular clusters and things of that nature. They also usually have at least one scientific article, by a guest scientist or someone who's extremely knowledgeable about the topic. And they also publish astrophotos from members and observing certificate awards, which I usually talk about every month. Let's talk about observing certificates. They have a number of observing programs. These are great. You get a pin or certificate to show off. These are a great structured learning way to become, a better observer at the telescope. So you can learn all about the Messier objects with, say, the Messier Marathon pin, or globular clusters with the Globular Cluster Observing Program, or learn lunar topography and geology with the Lunar Observing pin. And just even if you don't complete the observing program, just looking through the observing guide and doing some of the exercise can be quite informative of itself. And this is really, I think, probably one of the biggest benefits of the Astronomical League is there are dozens of these programs, very well thought out. I hate to use the term peer reviewed, but they're not just some Yahoo in his basement who came up with something. They're often quite good and very good quality programs to work through on your own and in your own time. They also have a bookstore. So they have a bookstore and there are vendor discounts. So you can actually save 10% for, say you watch the How to Pick a Telescope and you want to call Astronomics and get them to help you buy it. Well, they give a 10% discount to Astronomy League members. So, if you're buying a $500 telescope, that's $50 off, which is nothing to sneeze at. They also have some free PDFs that you can download. There's even a PDF on how to improve your astronomy club meetings, which I may have looked at. All sorts of great topics like that. Okay, this is distracting me. I need to vote on the poll and get it off my screen. No, I'll just move it down. Let's see. There is, clicked on the wrong thing here. Speaking of the bookstore, the Observer's Handbook for 2021, which is a staple for many amateur astronomers' annual astronomy budget. They do have a program going on right now if an astronomy club wants to buy them in bulk. So if we buy 12 or more, we can get them for $23 each, which is $1 off. It's only $1 off, but there's no shipping and handling. So if you're interested in that, speak up on the Groups.io forum, and we'll collect a list of people there, and we'll figure out how to make that bulk order and distribute them once they come in. Same thing goes for their calendar, $17 instead of $18, but we don't pay shipping and handling at all. So you're just out of pocket $17 for everybody to get their calendar. I know we've bought some of these in the past, and they they're popular, and so that's also something. Jump on Groups.io on our mailing list, and we'll collect some people there. They also have an annual convention, so if you're looking for an excuse to travel, the Alcon convention is sort of like, I've been to one. I know we have some other members that have been to them, and Derek's been and spoken at some. It's sort of like an indoor star party. It's basically a lot of guest speakers, and they also have vendors there who are selling things. So, there's a meteorite guy and a guy selling T-shirts and all that sort of thing. So it's a cool sort of vacation-y thing to do. That's like going to a really cool indoor star party or a multi-day astronomy club meeting. If you're interested in more, astroleague.org is the website. Go there and have a peruse of all of their miscellaneous benefits. I've bought several things from their bookstore myself, but it is also a font of very valuable and free information for amateur astronomers as well. Okay, so I'm gonna unshare for just a minute. I am actually next, but I think I actually want to vote on the poll. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about it. I can add one, right? But let me start my other keynote presentation here. Wrong one. I should have just put them all in one file. All right, new mini program that I'm going to try to keep up in the months ahead. I'm going to call it A Minute on the Moon, and I'm going to try to make it last only a minute, so it won't be a long rambling thing. I want to highlight something on the moon, and that will be our lunar sketching or photography challenge item for the month. And this month's Minute on the Moon is Mare Humorum. Mare Humorum is one of my favorite spots on the moon because there is so much going on in this little area. Looking at the full disk of the moon, it's located at the lower left here, or the southwestern area of the moon. It's visible now if you stay up late enough or get up early enough in the morning through September 12th. So the sun is setting, and it won't be available much longer, but it will be available in the early evening sky again on September 8th, and then we lose it again by about the time of our next club meeting. There's a lot of cool things going on here. Some craters with some very interesting central peaks and features. This crater here is called Gassendi, and the little bitty crater is creatively enough Gassendi A right next to it. And we have a central mountain, and we've got these little rills down in here, which are collapsed lava tubes. When I took this edge here, this is one of my images, it looks like some kind of processing artifact. But then I looked this up in some lunar reconnaissance imagery, and that's really there. This is really a very fascinating and interesting crater to observe. There's also two other craters with, oh, there they are, okay. There's also two other craters with central peaks in the middle. These are formed when the impact, there's basically a rebound of material in the middle. I don't want to say it froze, but the under high impact, solid materials become somewhat plastic, and so they kind of rebound up and create that mountain there. There's also these rills that sort of extend out radially, and these wrinkle features. These wrinkle features are really stand out under low angle solar illumination. And what that is this is all basaltic lava. This was all liquid at one time. It really was a mare, but it was liquid, molten basaltic rocks. And as it hardened and cooled, it contract, and the contractions of that lava have left these little ridges here. And during full moon, when the sun is shining straight down on those features, you can't see them at all. But they really just pop in the eyepiece or on the camera here when the sun is grazing. Now, as a fearless leader, I would not ask you to do anything I'm not willing to do myself. I am also trying to learn to sketch on the moon. My own observing equipment is still somewhat compromised, but I should be back. I should be back and without excuses soon. So instead of putting off completely, I just I used some lunar reconnaissance data to pull up one of the features. This is the Schrodinger Valley area that was part of the challenge last month, and I tried sketching that in the comfort of my living room. Now I say I'm cheating, but really this is a great way to get started. If you you don't have to be at the telescope to sketch. If you want to just try it on your couch or in your comfy chair in your living room, give it a try. Throw away a few sheets of paper. Learn to use those pencils. And right now, everybody's getting into all sorts of hobbies. If you go to a craft store, you'll find all these drawing kits that are on sale. And actually got mine at Sam Flack's, which is an art store in Orlando off of Colonial Drive. And anyway, I encourage you to do that. And according to our poll, it looks like it's more than 3 people are interested in sketching. So that's very great. And that is the end of my a minute on the moon, even though it took about 2 minutes. And I'm going to pass it over. Derek is going to do 2 back-to-backs. We're going to talk about what's up tonight. And then something Derek, I think, in the club is uniquely qualified to talk about, star trekking across Florida. And I'll let Derek tell you more about what that's all about in a bit.
All right, thanks, Richard. And definitely made some progress on those lunar sketches. So you have leveled up, my friend. You have leveled up. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little star tour here using the Stellarium program here. So, of course, right now the time we are looking at is 9:30. And actually, what I'm going to do here is I might go to about 10 o'clock. Just to kind of give us some extra time. Of course, the nice thing is we're getting closer to the fall equinox. We only have a few more weeks left until we reach the fall equinox. And when we do, obviously, nights are going to get shorter. Obviously, in the case we have equal day and equal night on the fall equinox. But that means that we don't have to wait as long to enjoy astronomy. And hopefully, we'll keep on with the time change, so it even gets darker earlier, so we don't have to worry about waking up early to look at astronomy in the morning or staying up super late. So we can do some astronomy at a relatively nice time for those that don't like to stay up late. Me, on the other hand, I could be up all night long, but I'm a night owl normally. So the nice thing about the pandemic is I have a little more flexibility in staying up late and doing astronomy. So right now we're facing towards the south here. And of course, you'll start to notice here about halfway up in the sky, we have both Jupiter and Saturn. As you can see, Jupiter was kind of the highlight of this astrophotography showcase because Jupiter is really nice. It's very close to the Earth relatively. We just passed opposition of Jupiter, but same thing goes with Saturn. So both are very nice in the sky, very easy to observe. So definitely get a chance to get out right after sunset and take a look at both Jupiter and Saturn in the sky. Now, what you'll notice too is if you're in a dark sky location, you'll be able to still see the Milky Way, the center of our Milky Way, the Sagittarius region of our Milky Way here. So if you remember in my previous observing challenge, we talked about the Lagoon and Trifid nebulas, which again is also very nice to look at this time of year. So be sure to grab those. But the next observing challenge I want to talk about is a globular cluster located in Sagittarius, known as the Cracker Jack cluster. So maybe you'll eat some Cracker Jacks when you're observing this object here. But located in Sagittarius is a beautiful globular star cluster. It has a magnitude of about 5, so it's very easy to see even with a pair of binoculars. But if you have a relatively nice size telescope, you should be able to get this this cluster. Now, it's not a super dense glob comparatively to some of the other globular clusters. It's a little bit more open, but it still definitely is a very nice image to not only photograph, but just to visually observe or to sketch. So again, this is one of my observing challenges for this month, is to take a look at Messier. There we go. Of course, relevant for our program tonight. Messier 22, the Great Sagittarius or Crackerjack cluster. So, and of course, to find that, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to this star right here called Nunki. Nunki is kind of the top handle star of Sagittarius. And over here we have Caus Borealis, which is basically the northern part of the bow. And essentially what we're going to do, I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. You can see right here would be the top of the bowl or the cup of the teapot. And what you want to do is you just kind of want to go just above that, and you will find the Messier 22. So again, this is a still fairly nice position in the sky. It's starting to get a little lower in the sky, as you can see. We don't have too much time left to observe it, but definitely get a chance to do that. And of course, here over in the western horizon, or in this case, the southwestern horizon, we'll see Scorpius right here. Nice Scorpius with the star Antares right there. Now, of course, that's relevant because in the next couple hours, you'll see the rising of Mars. So as Antares sets, Mars will begin to rise. So don't get the two confused, because Antares literally means not Mars. So yeah, so don't get those two confused there. Of course, you can see the two stinger stars, Lesath and Shula of Scorpius. Really nice to look at through a modest telescope as well. All right, so we got Sagittarius. Again, Sagittarius is famous for kind of the teapot shape here, but actually Sagittarius goes all the way down here and off to the side here. But what most people, when they observe Sagittarius, usually see the teapot. Here we have the spout, here we have the handle, and here's the top and the kettle of the teapot. So again, great little object to see. Even in light polluted skies, you should be able to see Sagittarius fairly well. Now we're going to go ahead and make our way over to the southeast, and we're going to go up towards the zenith. So it really doesn't matter that we're going towards the southeast, but we're going to head towards the east a little bit later on. When we look up towards the zenith, and for those that are new here tonight, the zenith is essentially the top of the sky. Some of us remember Zenith TVs. Zenith TVs is supposed to be the pinnacle of all televisions, but obviously that did not stay true. I don't know about you, but I haven't seen a Zenith TV in years. But what we'll notice here is we'll notice these three bright stars. And of course, this is an asterism. An asterism is a pattern of stars that aren't part of the official constellations in the sky. These three stars represent what we call the summer triangle. Now, here in Florida, we have endless summer. So the summer triangle is up for a decent amount of time, even if we get past what we consider summer. But it's mostly visible, obviously, in the summertime. And we have three bright stars. Of course, this one's already labeled. This is Vega. Right here is the star Deneb, which is this star here, and Altair, which is the head of Aquila the Eagle. So again, what you want to do here is right here is Vega, and this constellation right here, we'll zoom in a little bit, is, doesn't like that when I'm at the zenith. So we'll just have to kind of keep it like that. Vega here is the top alpha star of the constellation Lyra. And these four stars here kind of represent the rest of Lyra here. And what we can do here is we can bring up a art. Here we can see it kind of looks like a harp shape, but actually lyra is this old Greek type instrument, very small, that you would pluck while holding it. There's a lot of fascinating mythology to this instrument. It was actually created by Hermes and was gifted to Apollo as a trade for the caduceus, because Hermes wanted the caduceus. And then Apollo, the Greek god of music, was gifted the lyre. And eventually Apollo gave Lyra to Orpheus, and he became known as this famous musician that eventually inspired this Greek tragedy. So maybe one day I'll do a Star Lores program, mini program. If any of you are interested, maybe I can do some of that as well. So anyway, so that's Lyra. And of course, what's located in Lyra down here at the bottom, 2 stars. Let me go ahead and get rid of the art here. You can see these 2 stars kind of in the middle of that area is M57. M57 is Messier 57, or the Ring Nebula. And we saw that Bill Castro did draw that. But if we zoom in here, we can see the small planetary nebula, basically a star about the solar mass of our sun, has basically run out of its fuel and collapsed and basically created this large ring of gas that's illuminated by what we call a white dwarf, a very hot ball of carbon that basically is releasing a tremendous amount of energy and fluorescing the gases around. So planetary nebulas got their name because when you looked at them in a telescope, they had a very planetary look to themselves. And of course, M57 was part of my previous observing challenge. So if you haven't got a chance to observe M57, now's the chance to do that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and head over to the next constellation. We're going to head over to Cygnus the Swan. Of course, we're backing up a little too far here. But Cygnus the Swan is this area right here. The main star in Cygnus is Deneb, which is part of the triangle of stars in the summer triangle. And what a lot of people see is they look for this line of 3 stars here, which represent what we call the vertical crossbar, and the horizontal crossbar, what's called the Northern Cross. So kind of see if I can get a better view of it. There we go. You can see there we have the, doesn't like the zenith very much. Here we have the Northern Cross here with the crossbar shape. But if you want to make a swan, Deneb literally translates to tail. So this is the tail of the swan. Here we have one wing of the swan here, another wing of the swan, and its body, and its neck, and its head. So there's a couple of really cool deep space objects here. Right here, just next to Deneb, is this beautiful large hydrogen molecular cloud called the Pelican, which is right here, and the North America Nebula. And both of these are very nice to observe with a very small telescope and image it. So a really nice object to look at. Over here is Gamma Cygnus and the bubble and a bunch of other really interesting remnants as well. And over here next to this star called Algina or Guyana, Algina or Guyana, it goes by 2. You see here, kind of over here, we have this swath of object right here known as the Veil Nebula. So let me see if I can, doesn't like it either, but you can kind of see it right there. This is a supernova remnant. We have the Witch's Broom here next to this star, and we have the Eastern Veil and a bunch of the other remnants right here. So we got a lot of really interesting deep space objects. If you're into astrophotography, there's the Cocoon Nebula, there's the bubble, there's all kinds of really interesting objects to look in this this area of the sky. Now, over here is my next observing challenge. Yes, we looked at we're doing stars here and star clusters. Located in the head of Cygnus is a star called Albireo. But if we were to actually look at this object using a telescope, we'll be able to split these 2 stars together. It's not really showing me a really great view of this, which kind of stinks. But there should be 2 stars right here. One is blue and one is kind of an orangey yellow. So this is a great object to sketch. And if you want to add some color to it, this would be a great way to kind of show those 2 colors of these really nice binary stars. And the last area I want to talk about, which is part of the summer triangle, is this constellation right here called Aquila the Eagle. And the head or eye of Aquila is Altair. And what we can see here is right here represents the eagle's head. So that's his beak. We have one wing stretched out here. Kind of almost looks like the eagle on the American, or, like when we have, you have like stamps of the bald eagle. Kind of looks like that. You got one wing here, another wing here, and its tail. And another way we can demonstrate that is you can kind of see there we have the wings and such. So again, now Aquila is supposed to represent Zeus's incantation, or form of an eagle, if you will. So yeah, so definitely what I want you all to focus on this go around is to really capture that summer triangle, and lots to see over there. There's also other smaller constellations located in this area, like Vulpecula, the vulture. There's Sagitta, the arrow, and Delphinius, the dolphin. So Delphinius is actually this little area right here. That's the head of Delphinius. There's his tail. This right here represents Sagitta, the arrow. And Vulpecula is kind of over in this area here. Let me just get the labels because it's a little bit more difficult to see Vulpecula. It's not really, it's kind of in this area, but that's essentially what it represents right there. So see if you can find this. We even have Aquilus, the head of the horse right here. So let me know if you get a chance to observe that. And the last thing I want to talk about actually is we're going to go and zoom out a little bit here. And we're going to go to a little bit later in time. And you'll see located in Pisces right now is the planet Mars. Mars is actually important right now because we're heading towards opposition, which is going to be in mid-October. I believe it's October 11th or 13th. It's around that time. And this is a great time to observe Mars. Mars is looking fantastic through a telescope right now. So if you haven't had a chance to observe Mars, go ahead and do that. And that is, of course, my third observing challenge for this month, because I want you all to take advantage of the time we have with Mars as we approach opposition, to go out there and observe the planet Mars in the sky. So we'll move on to some other objects next month for the what's up in the sky, but take a look at the summer triangle while it's nice and high. Take a look at some of those objects in there, and of course, take a look at Sagittarius while we still have it, and of course, make sure to take a look at the planet Mars. So that's what we got for right now, and what I'm going to do, if you all want, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next portion of the program, which is where you can observe stuff in the night sky here in Florida. So what I'm going to do here is, because I'm going to be kind of jumping from PowerPoint to non-PowerPoint, is I'm going to go ahead and show you all right here this light pollution map, because this is going to be very important when looking for objects. Now I'm a big explorer. People who know me well know that I like to drive around and explore places, not only for astronomy but for other activities, hobbies, and things like that. And as you can see here we have Orlando. And if you live anywhere near Orlando, within about 40 minutes from Orlando, you will see that is not very good for observing. I live in Lake Mary, which is up here, and I'm still living in the red zone, which is basically horrible. And if you live closer to downtown Orlando, you pretty much can't really see much. So the goal of, obviously, is to get out somewhere where it actually is dark to do some observing. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you some locations I found that are safer. What I mean by safe is I mean that these are places that are accessible at night, that are not illegal. Generally, they're in fairly safe areas where it's, there's a lot of space. You have cell reception for the most part, and they're fairly easy to get to. Of course, you have to understand that there's always a risk with wild animals or other incidences when going out at night. And you have to accept that risk when you want to go out to the wild. But I'm trying to find places that are going to minimize that risk, and or pretty much neglect it with some of the observing areas. But just to keep that in mind, that when you do travel to some of these remote areas, that you do have potential risks of something happening to your car and you're out in the middle of nowhere, or all that. So that is the price to pay for dark skies. And any astrophotographer, visual observer understands those risks. The first place I want to take us to is right here, kind of west of Sanford, Lake Mary. And as you travel this road here, which is 46, you approach this lake right here, which is called Lake Harney. And Lake Harney, just north of that, right in this area here, is our Seminole State College Geneva campus. And as you can see here, we're kind of moving away from this kind of really bad light pollution to kind of getting away from light pollution. So it's, we call this as it's a transition zone. But also located down here is this road called Snow Hill Road, and located there is another site called the Econ-Lockhatchee Equestrian Trail site off of Snow Hill Road, and it has very similar comparable sky conditions. They're located very close, but Geneva does offer a little bit of better quality sky. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and there we go. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my PowerPoint here. And this is what Geneva looks like from on a good clear night from the driving range. Some of us have I've got a chance to observe here, and we are negotiating with the college to offer CFAS observing nights out here during this time. We can very well practice physical distancing during this time and ensure that everybody is safe. Nice thing about astronomy is you can still be by your friends, but not really. So that's something that we're currently trying to get the approval of. So hopefully we'll be able to bring out you all to our Geneva campus once more to do some observing. As you can see, we got a really nice view of the Milky Way. This is taken about 4 in the morning in April. And as you can see, towards the south, and towards the west, we do get a lot of light pollution from towns like Sanford, Orlando, whatnot. And this over here is kind of Titusville in that area. But the zenith and towards the top of the sky and towards the north and northeast, it is very nice. So this is a great place to go. A nice, if you only want to drive, maybe less than an hour for most people in Central Florida, depending on where you're located, this is a great place to go. Now, the next place I want to share with you all is if we head further east. I'm using a trackless mouse here. So if we move further east, eventually we head towards the coast. You can see that there's this kind of nice delineation from red, orange, yellow, and then into green. Well, located here is Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. Now, located kind of off of this road right here, State Road 3 right here, there is located right in this area, right before you get to the Holliver Canal Bridge, there is a boat ramp called Biolab. That's kind of where we're at right here. This is Biolab Road. And Biolab is actually a fairly dark sky location. And this image here was taken during one of the Perseid meteor showers. And you can see here the skies towards the north and east are spectacular. There's very little light pollution in this location, very small light pollution towards the west, but the skies here are really good. And Biolab, from my understanding, is accessible for stargazing on the new moon weekends. The Brevard Astronomical Society has an agreement, and it also includes access to other astronomical organizations. So you can go out here and do stargazing on around the new moon weekend. So this is something to consider. It's a really nice place. It's a very large space where you can set up and all that. The only downfall of this location is it's next to Mosquito Lagoon. And that's one fact that you have to accept. If you go anywhere remote in Florida, you're going to experience, well, mosquitoes, bugs, all kinds of things. And you can see here, I'm actually wearing a full bug suit here. I'm wearing literally long pants, a full bug suit, and all that. I was out there a lot longer. There's ways to be prepared. And actually, I can talk about in another program on how to really get suited up for this. Or I can talk about it too. You can get mosquito jacket nets. There's bug jackets you can buy. I like to wear that opposed to wearing all this DEET and all this mosquito repellent and stuff like that, because I just always feel gross wearing it, and it's also not as good for your body and for the environment. So there are ways you can really people use thermocell, which are these little things that hook up that basically get heated up and have fans that kind of blow this scent that kind of deters mosquitoes and other bugs. So there are obviously ways, but did you know that really a portable cordless fan is all you really need to keep mosquitoes away? If you can set that up close enough to you and blow it towards you, those mosquitoes will stay away from you too. So that's another option for you as well. I have one of those cordless. I have a Ryobi cordless fan that I have blown on me. And that does keep the mosquitoes away pretty well, actually, surprisingly. So, all right, okay, so the next spot, so that's Biolab. Again, Biolab Road is located here. Supposedly you can go there even on those dates. One of the places you can go that's open 24 hours, I just recently discovered, is just north. If you head up Route 1 up here, there's a little town called Scottsmore, which is kind of over here. There's a boat ramp just on the north side of the Mosquito Lagoon. Look it up, Scottsmore Landing, that is open 24 hours and gives you pretty much the same view of the sky from Biolab. So that's also another opportunity. And what I'll do is later on, I will put up a list of all these different these locations so you can get that all put together. Now, another place that I go out quite a bit is on the south side of Orlando. So if you get away from the south side of Orlando and you kind of head down towards St. Cloud in that area, you'll eventually get to an area known as Bull Creek. So let me see. I'm trying to find. There's 192. This is 192 here, and Bull Creek is this whole area right here. And there's this road called Crabgrass. It's a long dirt road you got to take into the entrance of Bull Creek. And once you get to Bull Creek, the best part about it, it is a park open 24 hours, 7 days of the week, no fees. You can camp anywhere on premise. It is a fantastic place to do astronomy because guess what? Look, you're in the green here. You are getting into some much darker locations. And as you can see here in this image, this is a picture of the Milky Way taken from Bull Creek. Look how dark the Milky Way, look how transparent the Milky Way is. These are actually fireflies that you see here. This is another image I've taken from this location. And as you can see, really nice, almost completely no light pollution down towards the southern sky. So you get a really great view of the Milky Way from this location. The only part of the sky that's really bad here is north. But if I was going to trade for sky conditions, I'd rather have the north unobscured opposed to the south opposed to the north. So this is a great place to do observations of the Milky Way. The east is also fantastic. The west is pretty good. And the zenith is absolutely amazing. So this is a great place. And this is a great place we could potentially schedule some meteor shower viewings. If any of you are interested, maybe we can coordinate a Geminid meteor shower viewing at this location in Bull Creek. Now, our next location is the dark sky sanctuary known as Kissimmee Prairie. If you continue down 441, so this is 192, Bull Creek is located about here. If you take 441 and you continue down, eventually you get to and you find this blue swath right here. Now, green obviously is pretty good. Blue is even better. And gray and black are your ideal locations. Located here is the state park Kissimmee Prairie Preserve. Now, Kissimmee Prairie Preserve does have campsites, and this has been an observing location for CFAS for many, many years. We used to host Astrofest at this location. This is our kind of go-to location. You can see there's the property of Kissimmee Prairie Preserve, and it's right here in this blue region right here. And this is the sky scene from Kissimmee Prairie Preserve. And believe it or not, if you were to ask me my honest opinion, I actually think Bull Creek is better for the Milky Way for one reason. You're actually further away from the town of Okeechobee. And Okeechobee has grown a little bit more year to year. and it's actually spewing up a little bit more light pollution. Now, I have a friend of mine who is the IDA chapter head of Florida, and we are going to be working with Okeechobee in the future, hopefully in the near future, to try to make them dark sky compliant and teach them the importance, the fact that there's this beautiful remote place located just north of them that if they could help preserve, they could help preserve this old Florida. Okeechobee is kind of an old town that they believe, they love this idea of heritage. And if we could tell them that, you're going to help preserve this old Florida that's being lost, they actually really like that idea. So hopefully we'll be able to work with this town to get them to help develop better lighting ordinances that hopefully will help preserve and keep Kissimmee Prairie Preserve as Florida's official dark sky location. So as you can see here, we've taken a look at several sites. Now we're going to go ahead and head north. Now, if you look at the light pollution sky map of Florida, and if you were to zoom out, let's zoom out a little bit, you can see that there are some fairly blue areas towards the panhandle of Florida. Located just north of Orlando, actually north of Ocala, and you're heading towards the Gulf Coast, right here is what we call Chiefland. The Chiefland Astronomy Village is located here kind of in the border of, there it is. The Chiefland Astronomy Village is located just south of Chiefland in this area right here. Now, CFAS has a great relationship with Chiefland. It's a really nice village. It's actually a great place to go observing. I think the membership right now is $35 for the year, and that gives you complete access to the site. You get electricity. This is my ideal spot to go do astrophotography because of all the amenities are available, and we have this membership, and you'll have people coming in. But not too far from Chiefland, if you're somebody who wants to get darker, all along the nature coast here, all along the Gulf of Mexico, is some of the darkest places in the state of Florida. And located right here in this area is known as Steinhatchee and Shired Island. And both of these locations, all over this area, you'll find Florida's darkest skies. Just a little bit of light pollution far away when I do long exposures. This is Florida's darkest skies in the actual state of Florida. Now, you're going to say, but Derek, for some of you might be thinking Dry Tortugas is the darkest, but that's not really connected to the peninsula of Florida. I'm talking about just on mainland Florida. These are where you find the darkest skies. And unfortunately, I haven't gone out there to get a shot of the Milky Way. Every time I tried to go out there, it's been cloudy. So hopefully in the future, I'll be able to get some great Milky Way shots. But Orion, I've done some really great shots of the wintertime from this location, and it is a fantastic place to go and stargaze. This is Steinhatchee, just north of Shired Island. Both of these areas are kind of in the same area. All along that area are just fantastic spots to observe the night sky. Very, very, very extremely dark. Look how dark that is. We're getting, under dark, clear skies, there's only a few light polluted areas towards the bottom, but near the zenith, it is spectacular. This is a fantastic place to go. Now, if you were to ask me my honest best place to go in Florida for dark skies outside of Dry Tortugas, we're going to keep going north. And this is a place that you gotta be serious like me, who would be willing to drive 5.5 hours to. But if you want the cream of the crop when it comes to dark skies, you want to head into the Panhandle. Located just north of this little town called Perry, all throughout this part of the state of Florida, there are boat ramps. Basically, if you just look on Google Maps, you'll see there are lots of boat ramps all along the Gulf Coast here. If you just look on Google Maps, there's the Big Bend Wildlife Management Area. There's St. Mark's. There's St. George down here, which is a state park. You can also camp. We're actually trying to work with the St. George State Park, which is located right here. We're trying to work with them to make them a dark sky site like Kissimmee Prairie. And there's this area known as Tate's Hell. Yes. Don't ask me why it's called Tate's Hell. I don't know. I can't find it, but this is the darkest place in the mainland of Florida. But it's mostly just pine trees. It's not as photogenic, and I'm all about getting the shots. But if you wanted an area to really get some stargazing in for visual observing, Tate's Hell would be it. But over here in this area, there is a boat ramp kind of near Apalachicola, just south of Perry here. There's a couple of boat ramps, and it is incredible. I mean, it's so dark along the horizon, no light pollution. You can actually see sky glow, which is ionized oxygen in our atmosphere. The Milky Way is truly spectacular from this location, and it's so photogenic. You just have that Florida flair in this place. I love it. You got beautiful ocean. You got the palm trees. It's just a really nice place to go to capture the moment of being in Florida under dark skies. But if you were to ask me my ideal location, and if you have the ability, the adventurous mind, then you got to go down south, way south. You got to go down to the Florida Keys. Now, there are some spots down here in the Florida Everglades. There's actually an area down here near Everglades City, which is kind of south of Naples, down here. There's a bay called Chokoloskee Bay. And there's actually, it's really dark over here too. There's a little town called Everglades City down here. And not too far from there is this thing called Chokoloskee Bay. And that's also a great dark sky place. But it is real Florida. Swamp, alligators everywhere, mosquitoes everywhere. This might not be appealing to most people in our society. But if you are truly an adventurer, that's a place to go. It's just if you are a Florida man like me, you'll definitely like Chokoloskee. But if you want the cream of the crop, best place to go in Florida, you want to go 80 miles west of Key West, located here, the Dry Tortugas, right here. Again, you're in that really dark zone. It's a bear to get to. Richard's done it. I believe maybe a few others have done. We tried to get a group trip together, but it never really panned out. But what you got to do is you got to take a ferry, Yankee Freedom, or you can charter a private boat or a plane, seaplane, and you take this 3-hour tour over the Dry Tortugas. You're required 50-pound limit on gear, unlimited for food and water and all that. But you can set up your astronomy equipment and camp on Dry Tortugas. And if you are somebody willing to do that, it's worth every moment. It is the darkest place in Florida. And because you're about 24 degrees north latitude, you can see Crux, Southern Cross, all of Centaurus, and the North Star. You get to see this whole swath of the sky that you normally couldn't see here from our latitude at 28 degrees. Just 4 degrees lower with a clear horizon all around you, you are able to see some stuff that would normally be very difficult here. So this is a magical place too. Having this place to yourself at night, except for maybe a few other campers, is truly amazing. Unfortunately, there are boats that occasionally pass by that produce these bright lights, but they're sporadic and they don't really harm the stargazing as much as, say, a big bright light on the side of the fort or something like that. So, and we're also working with this park. I have a friend of mine who's a park ranger there. Now that they're officially reopened again, he's serious about working with the Everglades and Dry Tortugas to make them dark sky compliant, especially Dry Tortugas, because this is the crown jewel when it comes to dark sky parks in Florida. If you have real heart for adventure and you desire the darkest skies in Florida, this is it. And I recommend all of you at some point in your life, if you physically can, mentally can, this is amazing. And I know Richard can attest to how dark the skies are here. And it's just a beautiful place to be during the day. Beautiful tropical waters, coral reef. If you're a family, if you have a family, great place to snorkel, great place to just have a nice getaway vacation away from people. So that's my list of areas to look at. What I will do later on is I will, in the Groups IO page, I will put a full list of these various locations with some pins that will show you exactly where to go and where that I feel are great spots for you to go out and explore. So, and of course, I'm always excited about seeing what you can find. Maybe you might discover a location that I haven't that I would love to be able to explore too. So that's another observing challenge that I give you, is to see if you can find some new dark sky places for us to explore. So thank you so much for your time, everybody, and happy exploring.
Thanks, Derek. That's great summary there. My son-in-law is in the Navy and likes to snorkel. He's been snorkeling all over the world. And on my first trip to the Tortugas, him and my daughter came with us. And he said it was the best place to snorkel of anywhere he's been in the world. They've got a really, really nice and well-preserved reef system down there. So that's one of the things, you're into astronomy and you want your family to come and they're like, yeah, daddy or mama, what are we going to do while you're doing other stuff? So it really is a great place to visit for everybody.
Real quick, Richard, John Pinto asked, what about Cedar Key? I didn't bring up Cedar Key because the town itself is not the greatest, but there is a shell mound just north of it that you can stargaze from. So thank you for that. I thought that was something that was more well known. I kind of wanted to look at some areas that were less well known, that are darker. If you drive up just a little bit further north, you'll get even darker skies. But Cedar Key is definitely a great location just north of west of Chiefland. And there's a shell mound camping area where you can also get some really great views of the night sky from.
Yeah. We were also talking in the chat, use the buddy system. You should always take someone with you when you go out somewhere by yourself. No matter how capable you are, no matter how competent you are, no matter what resources you bring with us, things can go wrong. Lost a member of my own immediate family to just a chain reaction of bad luck when he went out by himself at a place that was like freaking Wakaiva or something. You never would have thought that something could happen, but when you're by yourself, it's not a good thing. So before we wrap up, and I give my thanks to everybody, Eric Hoyne is going to talk to us a little bit about something that's happened recently. Eric?
Yes, thanks, Richard. There's a very good friend of mine that remained in touch with over the years. And some of you may remember that she was the first professor of astronomy over at the University of Central Florida. If you remember, as far back as when the Robinson Observatory was completed. And that would be Dr. Nadine Barlow. I happen to have her book on Mars. Get the camera there.
Yep.
Okay, quite a book. Pre-telescope observations, early telescopic observations, totally complete. She was one of the world's top scientists in regards to Mars. She came over to UCF from the Houston Space Center, and I would like to share my screen because I can't. But anyway, Dr. Nadine Barlow had passed away recently on August 17th. And so I was going to share a picture of her, just if folks remembered.
Right now.
Let me see if I can do that. There we go. Is that showing? Oh, here we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And so, yes, so she, we had quite a bit of dealings together. She would come over to the Orlando Science Center a lot. I could always email her or call her with any question that I had about astronomy. She was always very cordial, very jovial. And like I said, she was a press release officer for Houston Space Center. And this is her obituary, and it has something that I've always remembered. We were talking about her PhD, And she was laughing, and she said that she got her PhD by cataloging all the craters on Mars larger than 5 miles in diameter. And she said, I never would have done it if I would have known there were 4,200 of those suckers. And so it took her years to get it. But once she did, she was embraced by the scientific community, and she continued her interest in cratering on not only like it says, from Mercury to Pluto. She actually discovered an asteroid. It's called asteroid 15466 Barlow. She discovered that in 1999 through the Lowell Observatory Near Earth Object survey. So she will, I was somewhat in shock because I looked this up last week at our board meeting when we were talking about programs. So I was curious about her still being at Northern Arizona University, but quite shocked to find out she had a 2-year battle with ovarian cancer. So the scientific community is I don't know how to put it besides we've lost a really great colleague and someone who did a lot for CFAS, and some of us knew her very well. So thank you, Richard.
Sure. I met her way back. I've been in CFAS a long time, and she was a fixture or a household name at CFAS when I joined, and I remember her giving talks at CFAS and on a visit or two out to the Robinson Observatory. So I know we have some old time people at CFAS who remember who she is. So it's appropriate that we remembered her tonight.
Thank you.
And
she came up to the observatory over at Orlando Science Center. Mm-hmm. And when she gave a presentation, this is how long I've known her, they were still using the old overhead projectors. Remember, with the transparencies. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember getting to be an old man here. Huh. Yeah. No. All right. So thank you everyone for sticking around. Some of us have been online since 5 o'clock with the getting ready and trying things for the telescope show. I appreciate everybody coming out for that, and especially our volunteers who have been online since 5 o'clock. That's a long haul. So thank you everybody for your time and your dedication during the pandemic while we meet this way. And I hope everybody enjoyed it, and we'll have another exciting program for you next month, I hope. And until then, clear skies, get those observing reports in, and be careful. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good one. Thanks, everyone.